Chair of the Harwich Board of Appeals, I'd like to open this meeting. Call to order. Welcome to the meeting of the Harwich Board of Appeals on this date, May 31st. The purpose of this meeting is to hear and decide applications before the Board of Appeals which have been brought pursuant to the bylaw of the town of Harwich and the Massachusetts Zoning Enabling Act. As required by law, the town may audio or video record this meeting, which we are. Any person intending to either audio or video record this open session is required to inform the chair. During this meeting, the chair will recognize properly a member of the board, the secretary, and attorneys presenting a case to inform the chair if a protocol is not being properly followed. While in open session, those wishing to present comments or ask questions regarding a case are requested to fill out information form on the podium. I didn't check it, but it should be there. Just ask for your name and your, I believe, your email address or address itself before you speak. I'd like to have each board member introduce themselves, starting with John.
John August.
Dave Nunley.
Alexander Donahue.
Brian Sullivan.
Chris Murphy.
Tim Bailey.
Ken Dixon.
Okay. And want to have the clerk call the first case?
Case number 2023-12. Richard J. Thompson, trustee for Richard J. Thompson Living Trust. The property owner located 128 Route 28, Harwich, West Harwich, actually. Census map 10, parcel L5 in the RM and zoning district, first zoning district. The applicant seeks a variance for the minimal lot size required pursuant to the Harwich zoning bylaw 325-52 and MGL chapter 48, section 10. This case has been requested by the applicant for a continuance. No, excuse me, his request for withdrawal from this evening, and meaning he's going to have to reapply for this particular property.
He verbally requested withdrawal, but we did not get it in writing, so we still have to announce a case, and right now we're going to continue it till next meeting until we do have a written withdrawal, okay, in case he changes his mind. Okay.
Do you want me to read the continuance into it on the record?
Sure.
Okay. 2023-12, Richard J. Thompson, treasurer for Richard J. Thompson Living Trust, property located 100 Route 28. This case has been continued to a future date.
Okay, thank you. I believe I just hand vote here, all in favor of the continuance? Okay, approved? Okay, the continuance has been approved unanimously. All righty, we'll have Al, as clerk, would you read the next case?
Case number 2023-13, Mark and Jean Claflin, through their attorney, William Kroll. They are the owners of the property located at 3 Osborne Road, Assessors Map 4, parcel W1-28 in the RH1 zoning district. The applicant seeks a special permit or, in the alternative, a variance to construct an addition to a pre-existing non-conforming single-family dwelling pursuant to the Harwich zoning bylaw 325-52 and 54, and MGL chapters 48 and sections 6 and 10.
Okay. As of today, there were no concerns, relevant notices that were issued by any of the town departments. Okay. Actually, I don't believe there was on the Board of Health. Let me just check. Okay. All right. Going to assigning members for the voting for this case will be Al Donahue, myself, Brian Sullivan, Dave Nunley, Chris Murphy, and Tim Bailey. And Chairman asks the applicant representative to introduce themselves and any person assisting you with the application.
My thanks to the chair. I'm Attorney William Kroll from Harwich Port, representing Mark and Jean Claflin this evening. Mark is here seated beside, beside me, and his wife Jean is on her way, very much wants to be here, but the first case didn't go forward, and she's racing down Route 6.
Okay.
In any event, we will be proceeding. The property in question is located south of Lower County Road, as shown on the assessor's map that I submitted with the petition. And just briefly to go through the setbacks, the existing dwelling is non-conforming from Osborne Road. We have two roads here, Clifford Road and Osborne. So on the west side, it is 24.8 feet from Osborne, and that's not going to change. It's non-conforming in that you're supposed to be 25 feet under the current regulations, but it's pre-existing non-conforming at 24.8. It's also non-conforming at 11.6 from Clifford Road on the south, and that's not from the edge of the gravel, that's from the boundary line is 11.6. And the addition actually will be pulling it back a couple of inches to 11.8. It's shown on the southwest corner of that addition. The northerly setback is 24.8, so it's conforming, it's 20-foot minimum there, and that's not going to change. The easterly setback is currently 45.5 and will decrease somewhat to 33.3, but still more than the 20-foot minimum. So we're increasing the nonconformity as far as habitable space on the southerly side, so that's where we're focused. But also the building coverage is 15.1%, 30% is the maximum, so we're under that, and it will go up somewhat to 18.2%. The site coverage is 17.6%, the 35% is the max, and that will increase somewhat to 23.1. But the building coverage and the site coverage will remain conforming, so that the reason we're here under the bylaw, our bylaw and the Gale case, is that we're creating more habitable space by enlarging the area on the southerly side of the lot to create more habitable space within the 25-foot setback from Clifford Road. And in accordance with our bylaw, we're not coming any closer to the boundary line than the existing nonconformity. Our bylaw says that's a special permit. The Gale case also says if you have an existing nonconformity, which we do on that southerly side because a portion of the existing house in the middle of the addition there juts down towards Clifford Road and is only 11.6, so that's a nonconformity. And the Gale case, as you know, says you can intensify an existing nonconformity on a special permit, either under the bylaw or pursuant to the Gale case by this board, if you make a finding that the proposed addition will not constitute a substantial detriment to the entire neighborhood. And our argument is that this will be an improvement to the neighborhood, enhance everybody's property values, not be a detriment, and certainly not a substantial detriment, and it would not affect the entire neighborhood. So we ask that you grant the special permit this evening. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Terry. Appreciate it. I'd like to begin by asking board members for their comments or questions. John?
My only question regarding that letter, that I don't know if you saw, Brian, that was...
Yeah, I was going to announce that. Why don't you mention the letter?
Yeah, so there was a letter received from the resident on 3 Osborne Road, on 5 Clifford Road, regarding where the driveway will be placed, since currently the parking is in the public road, blocking access to other properties. So I was just looking...
You want me to respond to that?
Yes, please.
Okay. First of all, the Claflins do not park in that road. It's not a public road. That section of the road, as shown on the site plan, is a private road. Where it comes to the corner and turns left to go onto Osborne Road, that portion of Clifford Road is public and Osborne Road is public. But you have what's called a paper way there. The town never took it. It's private. and you see the edge of the gravel / dirt, the dotted lines on there. They don't park and impede anybody's use of Clifford Road. We have neighbors here that can attest to that if you want to hear from them. But that being said, you can park anywhere on your lot that you want. You don't have to have a driveway. So you can park on the grass in any lot. So they can park, they usually park on the southeast corner here of the plan, right over here, on their lot. As far as where the gravel is, I think as a practical matter, they can park all the way to the gravel. It's not impeding anybody's use. That adds about another 6 or 8 feet beyond the lot line. There's plenty of room to park. They don't have to, and they don't park in the road. That being said, in my opinion, it's irrelevant to the issue before you tonight. The issue before you tonight is the addition of substantial detriment, not are they parking in the road. That's something for the building commissioner to enforce, maybe police, highway, but not the Board of Appeals.
John, any other questions?
No, that was-
Well, I'd like to follow up on that, if I might. From my inspection of the property, and I certainly hear what you're saying regarding, what you call it, the southeast corner,
Yes.
where that's probably available for parking. From my visual looking at it, it didn't appear that much parking was going on that lot at that corner. Now, per the Howard zoning code 325-39 regarding off-street parking, the schedule shows for residential use, a single-family dwelling requires 2 parking spaces to be noted on the site plan. And currently, the site plan we have does not note, per the zoning code requirements of 325-39, a parking area. And obviously, that's my question to you and the applicant. Requiring, we're not, currently, we don't seem to be abiding by, based upon the plan, the Harwich Code 329-29.
I understand.
325-39.
I understand, and we're happy to designate that and submit an amended plan if you want. Don't want to continue the case, we want to get going with it. Happy to submit that and have the engineer draw that in. With all due respect, I don't recall the board ever requesting that in the past, in the petitions that I've submitted. It hasn't been an issue. I just don't recall that being shown on any kind of a regular basis on the plot plans. But we're happy to do it and show where the parking spaces would be. But again, they could park over on the Osborne Road side if they wanted to. They can park anywhere on their lot that they choose to. It doesn't have to be a paved area, you can just park
Well,
on the grass.
I recognize that. Obviously, if you park down at that and show the parking and utilize it, obviously, it's a private road, so on one half of that road, that they're.
They own it.
Yeah, they are owners of it.
They own it.
I recognize that, I'm not disputing that, I
Right.
do recognize that.
Subject to the right of everybody that has a right to use it, to use it.
Correct.
Yep.
Okay, but basically, and I do see what you're saying. In fact, I don't recall many sites we've seen that haven't shown some sort of parking on their lot. So I don't remember necessarily site plans I've looked at that didn't have any parking on them.
Well, driveways, usually you see driveways.
driveway, okay.
You don't see parking
Right, no.
spots.
Right, I'm not disputing, a driveway, obviously if it's long enough, can hold 2 cars.
Or garages, et
Right,
cetera.
Right, obviously a parking space is considered 9 by 18 to 20 feet. So if you've got basically 20 by 20 area, it certainly covers the requirements.
Which we do, and we're happy to do it, to
Right, so I'm
accommodate the
just, at
board.
this point, I would like, as far as, I will stipulate requests that a motion be done,
Mhm.
that a plan will be submitted showing proper parking.
For your review, your approval, so that we could still be granted the special permit
Right,
this
and
evening
if
on
the
that
board,
condition.
if the board approves, that I take a look at and verify the fact that was submitted correctly, we can avoid, as long as the rest of the board approves that, going forward, allowing you to submit a plan at a later date, at which point, when that the plan's been received, then any finding from this board, then I'll sign the approval, for the special permit.
What I'm suggesting is that the board grant the special permit,
will.
subject to the condition.
Correct.
And then prior to us getting a building permit, you would have to approve the plan, not withhold signing the special permit. You have a condition on it.
Okay, I think that would work, that'd be fine,
Okay, thank you.
yeah, that'd be fine. Okay.
All questions?
You wanna touch it? Is that it? You- Al?
No, there's no questions.
Okay. Ken?
No.
Tim?
No questions?
Chris? Okay. Well, it's, no questions being heard. I'd like then to open up comments. Anybody wants, from the public, who wants to speak regarding this case? Is there anybody from the public? Seeing none, that, I'd like to make a motion then that we, being the fact there's no more discussion from the board, okay, I'd like to make a motion that we close the public hearing.
Second.
Okay, case number 2023, Mark and Jean Claflin, through their attorney.
One quick thing, I need to vote on, as far as the open meeting being closed. All those in favor? Okay.
Through attorney William D. Kroll. The owners of the property located 3 Osborne Road, assessors map, parcel 4, map 4, parcel 1, W1-28, in an RH1 zoning district. The board has put a condition with regard to this property. However, the board does grant a special permit in the case, having found that the applicant meets the requirements of the bylaw of Gale, and Diedrich. As proposed, the project will intensify one or more existing nonconformities and will not create any new nonconformities. It will not be substantially more detrimental to the neighborhood and existing structures. All work shall be performed in accordance with the plan submitted. Condition will be, that's being placed on the petition by the board, is that a plan will be submitted to the building department relative to,
I believe it's to the chairperson.
To the approval of the chairperson.
the approval of the chairperson relative to the parking on this property.
One thing we didn't cover was timeframe. Attorney, when you plan on doing the construction?
Let me read this one in, and you can give a response to it. Be no demolition, exterior construction, or new landscaping during the period of June 30 to Labor Day of any year. During the life of the project, this is a very confined area. All construction vehicles shall be parked on the property and not on any public street. That does not include the private way.
Yeah, just public street, you can't.
Right, I didn't say that, that doesn't improve, yeah, the private street is. All right, it is a condition of this approval that the violation of the terms and conditions of the special permit may be enforced as a violation of the Harwich zoning bylaw pursuant to MGL Chapter 48, Section 7, Harwich binding zoning bylaw, as these may be amended from time to time.
I'm happy to say Mrs. Claflin has arrived for the most important part of your meeting.
Oh, excellent. Should we gavel her in? Okay. Can I have a second on that motion?
Second.
Okay. Any discussion at all? All right. All those in favor of the motion?
Aye.
Motion approved. Congratulations.
Thank you very much.
I appreciate your work with me on the site plan.
Yes, you also. And we'll get that to you for your approval before we can get our building permit.
Yep.
Okay. Shouldn't take long.
Minimum dimensions.
There you go. Right.
Okay. Al, like to read the next
Case number 2023-14, 14 Weechmere Harbor Holdings LLC. Through their attorney, William Cole. Give him a chance to sit down.
Thank you.
Through their attorney, William Kroll, the owner of the property located at 625 Route 28, Assessors Map 15, parcel N9-1 in a CV zoning district. The applicant seeks a special permit, or in the alternative, a variance to raise and replace the existing non-conforming structure through the Harwich zoning bylaw 325-52 and -54 and MGL chapter 40A sections 6 and 10.
Regarding relevant notices, the Board of Health indicated the applicant required to relocate the septic tank, and any setback variances will require approval from the Board of Health at a monthly meeting. I was a little confused regarding the statement from the Historic Commission. I believe the final report was on May 25th, that the project for 625 Route 28 does not have to go before the Historic Commission.
Correct.
We had a previous comment from them that it did.
Right,
And
but
then we
we
got-
had something back last winter that said we didn't.
Right, yeah, you had that.
So I don't know
saw-
why they put that in there, but,
So anyways, I just wanted to verify the fact that the Historic Commission does not have to hear the case.
their records were incorrect, if I may, Mr. Chairperson, that the structure on the lot was actually built in 1950. So they state that in their
Right, I saw
statement
that,
to you. So it's less than 100 years old.
Okay. Assigning and voting. Al, Dave Nunnally, Chris Murphy, Tim Bailey, and Kenneth Dixon. And I'd like to have I'd like the applicant and representative introduce themselves, and any person that's going to be assisting.
Sure. So that was Mr. Dixon, Mr. Bailey, Mr. Murphy, Mr. Donahue, and Mr. Nunnally,
Correct.
right? My thanks to the chair. I'm Attorney William Kroll from Harwichport, representing the petitioner, Wichmere Harbor Holdings LLC, this evening concerning 625 Route 28 Harwichport. Now, I'm sure you noticed that the next petition is to demolish and replace also the property immediately to the south at 68 Snow Inn Road. That property is owned by Michael and Michaela DeVario, and they are the principals of the Wichmere Harbor Holdings LLC. I advised them to take title in a different entity just to keep the separation of the title for any future zoning changes that might take place, things of that nature. It can't hurt. Keep the property separate. So they are not merging the properties into one lot. They're keeping them as separate lots. But they are the two peas under the walnut shell. It's husband and wife, Michael and Michaela, and their three young daughters. So I have seated beside me, not Michael DeVario, but Michael Tartamella, who is with the architectural firm of Patrick Ahern Architects. He's the managing architect, designed the lovely floor plans and building elevation plans that you have with these two properties. So you all know where this property is located, corner of Route 28 and Snow Inn Road. And we're seeking a special permit to demolish and replace this pre-existing structure on the lot, as shown on the plan and the building and elevation plans. This structure does not have frontage on Snow Inn Road. There's a little rabbit ear that comes up from the 68 Snow Inn and goes all the way up to the corner. Why? Because that's where there's an easement to put a sign for what used to be the Thompson's Clam Bar, and it's now Witchmere Harbor Club, so that they would always have a sign visible on Route 28. That structure is presently 49.9 feet from Route 28, and that will decrease to 29.8, but that's still more than the 25-foot minimum from away. The easterly setback is non-conforming at 15.8 from that lot line. And that's why I pointed out that rabbit ear, I'm calling it, that comes up from the other lot. It's not to Snow Inn Road, it's to the boundary line shown on that existing plot plan of the existing dwelling. So that's 15.8. And that will become more conforming at 16.5. We're pulling the house back a little bit from that lot line. The rear, and that lot line, because it's not on the road, it's a 20-foot setback, not a 25-foot setback. The rear setback is presently non-conforming at 10.9 and will become slightly more non-conforming at at 10.7 for the new structure, 20-foot minimum again. The westerly setback is currently non-conforming at 16.6 and will become more non-conforming, a little bit closer to the lot line at 13.5. Mr. DeVario and his immediate neighbor to the west have a very good relationship, and as I understand it, the westerly neighbor has no issue with this project. The existing building coverage in this zone right now it's 10.9%. It will increase somewhat to 21.5%, but the maximum is 50% in a commercial zone on CH1. So they're well below the building coverage. The site coverage is presently 35.1, will increase to 59.7. And I know Mr. Sullivan says, wow, are you coming closer to your limit, Mr. Kroll? No, I'm not, because it's an 80% maximum site coverage in that zone, so we're still well below the maximum. So what we're seeking to do is demolish and replace that existing structure on the lot and intensify the nonconformity to the south a little bit, going from 10.9 to 10.7 inches, okay? Just a few inches. And on the westerly side, we're going from 16.6 to 13.5, so diminishing it by 3 feet. So nothing, in my opinion, nothing earth-shattering about what we're seeking to do. And we don't think that the new structure, and when you look at the new structure, and look at the proposed structure for 68 Snow Inn Road, you'll see, in my opinion, that that's I'm calling it a captain's house at 68 Snow Inn that they want to build, and a carriage house that goes with it. It's the new house at 625 Route 28 is a single-family residence, will be a single-family residence, but I'm calling it a carriage house, if I'm characterizing that correctly, along with a captain's house to fit into the historic streetscape and landscape and culture around Witchmere Harbor and on Snow Inn Road. In my opinion, this will be, these two dwellings will be a significant improvement to that area. Number one, it will look great and fit in. And we've done some significant research of other dwellings in that area, and and are satisfied that it will fit in. I think it also makes that dangerous intersection safer, because the egress from this new dwelling on 625 will not be, when you look at the existing plot plan, it will not be this half-moon driveway going in and out off of 28. It will be a driveway ingress and egress onto Snow Inn Road only. So I think it makes it a safer intersection. I think it makes it a better-looking intersection. It gets any kind of a commercial use off of that corner and ends up with totally residential use. So I think it's in terms of whether this is a substantial detriment, I think it's just the opposite. I think it'll be a substantial improvement to that intersection. And it will not result in anything that affects detrimentally the entire neighborhood. And those are the criteria that this board is to go by. In granting a special permit, I would argue there'd be no substantial increase in noise, odors, fumes, traffic, congestion, or the like. Be a decrease. It will not result in a nuisance. And in terms of, in case it comes up, the proposed patio that straddles the line between the two lots, ground level patio. You can have a ground level patio right up to your lot line. So both lots, ground level patio right up to the lot line. It will give the appearance of one patio, but it's not a structure, so I don't think there's any prohibition to that whatsoever. And would argue that that we've met the criteria for this board to grant a special permit this evening for the demolition and replacement of this structure on the lot. Thank you.
I appreciate your comments on the patio, because I had to look that one up myself, because I wasn't quite sure how that worked, and I realized that you can bring it right to your lot line, so everyone's got a portion of a patio to their lot lines.
Yes.
Right.
One thing you can do, right up to your lot line.
Right.
Grass and patios.
It's, and regarding site plan percentages, that was my first year on the board. I think I now realize how that works a little bit better than
I won't make any future call. You're a seasoned veteran now, Mr. Sullivan.
All right. I'd like to entertain questions and comments from the board. Ken?
I'm just referencing, I'm hoping you've seen it from the Town of Harwich Board of Health dated May 24th, requiring some septic changing or relocation. I'm looking at the site plans and I don't see where that would be done.
That will be done because they, as required, because we cannot get a building permit without them, without satisfying the Board of Health. That's why they're weighing in on this, so that will be accomplished. But that's their jurisdiction, we'll be submitting appropriate plans with them.
So they won't change your footprint of the proposed dwelling?
No,
That's actually my only question. Thank you.
you're welcome.
I have no questions.
Actually, my only question is something, not directly with the approval, but on these plans, what view will face 28, and which will face Snowden Road?
Would you like to answer that, Mike?
Sure, I can answer that for you. So the front elevation that we're calling in your
So
plans.
it's like a bunch of garage doors,
Yeah, the carriage house elevation would
Yeah.
face 28,
28.
right? And so the rear of that structure would open to the Snow and Road property behind.
Yeah, I had no questions, I was more out of curiosity to see how it would sit on the property. Thank you.
Following up on Ken's question on the septic, the plan is showing a septic system on the site plan. Is that not, does this plan not meet the Board of Health's approval, or does it?
This is not a site plan for the Board of Health.
No, but the location you're showing for the septic there, is this approximately what you're gonna be doing?
That was what John O'Reilly was showing back in mid-March. He will obviously have to alter that
Okay, all right, so that's just, all right.
on his final submission to the Board of Health. And it does not change the number of bedrooms. We're going from 2 bedrooms to 2 bedrooms.
correct.
The system won't get larger either.
Right, no, I understand that, okay. The, because of the naming of the LLC and the fact that the owners listed as members, I'm consuming, I assume that there'd be no commercial purposes for this site,
Correct.
all right? And there won't be any additional memberships being sold or whatever for the house, and you listed as members. So how many members are there gonna be in this ownership of the home?
With an LLC, first of all, I know the DeVarios quite well, and I can tell you the last thing I think on their mind is to have any commercial purpose
Yeah,
to
okay.
this property. Now, in doing estate planning, if you have an LLC, you could assign percentage interest, let's say mom and dad each own 50%.
Right.
They could assign interests to their 3 daughters that I mentioned, in
That I
order to,
understand. I've done that myself,
all right, to reduce your estate taxes.
correct.
So that could happen. Could they assign percentage interests to somebody else? I think they could.
I
but
guess
that
my
doesn't
confusion
affect-
was the term member as opposed to trustee, that's,
Okay. With an LLC, it's not a trust. And I'll explain
Yep.
briefly why not. A trust has trustees and then it has beneficiaries
Right.
underlying it. So you could put it into a trust and have mom and dad be, husband and wife be 50-50 beneficiaries. So you ask, why the LLC? Free legal advice. Massachusetts has a statute now that says if you own property in a trust and you're the beneficiary of the trust and you die, Taxachusetts can tax as a non-resident, they live in Connecticut, they can tax your interest, your 50% interest
okay.
in that trust, or if it's in just their names, husband and wife together. But we have a statute in Massachusetts now that says if you own it in an LLC, that converts that real estate interest to intangible personal property, like a stock. And that's taxed in the jurisdiction in which you reside, Connecticut, when you die. And Massachusetts doesn't get to tax your interest in that property. So I advise them to put it into an LLC for that reason.
That I understand, but I was just kind of confused by using the word member and whether or not this is gonna be a commercial enterprise.
It's not.
Okay.
It's LLCs have members.
That I didn't realize, okay. All right. Back of the property along the side yard, there are a bunch of shrubs. Is that the property line where the shrubs are currently? Just out of
They're
curiosity.
not showing on, the shrubs aren't showing, so I have no way of knowing.
Okay.
That gets a lot of people into trouble when they think their backyard ends at the
Right,
shrubs,
and
and
I
it
just
turns
didn't-
out the neighbor actually
Visually
owns
looking at it, I
on-
was just,
Do you have anything, Mike?
Are you referring to the side where 623 is?
yeah,
I mean,
just not a major deal here, just was asking a question.
roughly, but that's not necessarily exactly where the property is.
And will this property with 625 and 68 be developed at the same time?
Yes,
So both are gonna be torn
Yes.
down?
because we've been to historic on 68, last November 16th, and they imposed a one-year demolition delay
Delay till November.
till November 16th.
Right, why was that?
Because they didn't like the fact that we were demolishing a property, a dwelling that was more than 100 years old. They didn't like the look of what we were proposing. That's
So
their
it will look-
prerogative.
It will look better the day after, in the middle of November, it'll look better than in October?
That's
Is
the
that what-
bylaw.
They can impose, if they want to, they say, no, we're not going to bless this new dwelling. We're going to impose a one-year demolition delay. The reason for that is to see if anybody wants to buy that house
I see.
and move it off the site.
So given the date that they impose, after that, you can begin demolition.
Right. For example, as I understand it, when you read what the historic, the email that they sent along saying it's not,
I went through it, yeah.
all right, there used to be a house in the 1800s on this property, and it says it was moved off the site to a different location.
Right.
And then this was built in 1950. So the demolition delay is to give somebody a chance to move that dwelling off the site to preserve its historic nature, put it somewhere else. Doesn't happen very often, but sometimes it does.
Okay.
I mean, I have some experience with this in other towns, and I can speak to shaping the bylaw in my own town, and the reason for that is to discourage development, you know, from somebody who's looking to build a spec house and sell it. If there's a one-year delay imposed, typically carrying the property for a year is something that someone wouldn't necessarily want to do. Some towns offer a design review, so where they look at the design and they say, well, we like what's gonna go back, we'll then reduce the one-year delay. In this case, the fact that we were just simply removing the house imposes the delay automatically. So it was sort of irrelevant what was gonna go back. The fact that that house was coming down, it gets a one-year delay.
But
We
this-
made the best presentation we could, best sale job we could about how attractive this new house was gonna be, and it's just, no,
That's all right.
demolishing it
I
in
understand.
1 year.
But prior to that date that they impose, you can do all your building planning and approvals from the building commissioner and so forth and get that all in place. You don't have to wait till November.
Right. So if we get approval this evening for this project, right, we're gonna wait until November 16th to do this one also.
Okay.
You asked, are we doing it at the same time? That's the intention, is to do it at the same time.
Okay. I have no other further questions. Al?
Not to add any more confusion to this, but it indicate on my sheet here that there is the Historical Commission needs to have their appeal answered. And the next line down, which is 15, talks about demolishing and delay of the inspection with regard to November. But it appears as though they're separating in 14, 625 Route 28 will need approval from the Historical
No,
Commission.
that's a good point, Al. If I'm like speaking, yeah, you know, since, after they did that, they then sent out a May 25th memo
All right.
that indicated that the Historic Commission was not gonna be, they were not gonna be required to go for the Historic Commission.
Okay.
So they did that first, then they sent this memo out.
All right, I withdraw that.
I refreshed their memory as to what they had done in January, and
Yeah,
they'd
I just,
forgotten about it. Or someone did, anyway.
No further questions.
no questions.
Just a quick one, and I'm not sure if it counts in the building height, but the drawing doesn't show the height of the cupola. Can I assume it's less than 6 foot?
Yeah, that's exempt from building height, yeah.
It's exempt?
I'm saying, the cupola is exempt from the building height?
Typically cupolas, chimneys, anything less than 6 feet wouldn't be included in the building height bylaw.
Okay.
So the structure height is what we're showing there at 23 feet 4 inches. Where 30 is the maximum.
Okay.
That's my only question.
All right, thank you.
I have a follow-up question
Sure.
myself. The conversation, not to tie it up in the 100-year. So the Historical Society said you couldn't knock down the house because originally they thought the building was, constructed in 1865. That was not true. It was actually constructed in 1950. Why did they still impose the 100-year?
They did not,
Yeah.
I mean, the 1-year
they
construction.
did not.
They
That's
did
on
not.
the one to the south of us, 68.
Okay, all right.
They didn't,
Right.
yeah, that, we'll get to that.
That
one.
house got moved off, that old house that I mentioned got moved off the site, and then this new structure was built in 1950, less than 100 years old. So I refreshed their memory about what they said in January, and they said, yes, we do not have jurisdiction. It's not subject to our approval or disapproval. But 68 was, and they imposed a 1-year demolition delay.
Yeah, just to be clear, they didn't tell us we can't tear the building down. It's just per your bylaw, it imposes a 1-year delay.
Right. You wait out the 1 year, and you can build whatever you want. You can build that structure if you want to.
I know if no further questions at the moment by the board, I'm going to ask, anybody in the public who'd like to speak to this case? Yes,
Hi,
sir.
Bob Nickerson, Howardsport, 3 houses away from the project. I had a question, is that I understand these are 2 properties, right? So you could sell one property and keep the other property down the road. When you get into the second half of this, you'll see there's 1 parking space on that other property. So you really kind of have to park on both properties. So it makes me a little concerned that why these aren't co-joined. I get it from a legal standpoint, that maybe there's some value there, but there is no reason that they couldn't sell one or the other and create a harder problem down the road. Secondly is, from my point of view, the parking and the front property you're discussing now has that kind of windy turn, if you look at the plan to get into the driveway. Well, Snow Inn Road is nuts. I'm telling you, they fly down Snow Inn Road. So Bill says, okay, it's a plus because they can go right out of Snow Inn. I get that part. But when you're going into Snow Inn, they have to practically stop to make a right-hand turn to get into that driveway within probably no more than 10 to 15 feet from the intersection. So I'm just warning you that I can see someone else coming in behind him. He's stopped, trying to go in that driveway. New intersection problem.
I was wondering, is that piece of paper up on the podium to sign in?
Yep.
If at some point tonight, if you might just sign that. Oh, good, thank you. All right. Yes, your name, please.
Barbara Nickerson, 617 Route 28. So in addition to the comments that Bob just made, a couple things. There's show on the west side, the 6-foot easement, and then they showed that they're using that 6-foot easement. Didn't identify what the 6-foot easement was for or who owned it or who was allowed to use it. Question on that. Second off, where's all this runoff going to? To the people across the street because they're downhill? I mean, you have nothing about stormwater management after the fact, maybe during construction, but this all slopes towards Witchmere Harbor. We're talking about all of this, the pollutants entering the harbor and everything else from the roads, and here you have two lots that have like nil grass area to absorb any of the rain. And where's it going? The driveway is going to go right into the Curtis's house, right across the street, then further on down and create additional erosional problems that we have on Snow Inn Road. I had a couple other things, but that was beside the point. But one of my other concerns, and maybe you all are going to talk about this after the fact, but I want to talk about the construction time frame. I don't want to hear it on the weekends. I don't want to hear it at 6 a.m. I don't want to hear it all summer long. I don't want to have cars parked along Bay Lane or Snow Inn Road. This is a horrible intersection to begin with. The lighted stop sign helped a little bit, but we still had an average of 1 accident per 2 weeks last summer. You know, people come out of there feeling good after the weddings, etc. So we do not need any kind of construction vehicle parked on Snow Inn Road, 28, or Bay Lane right behind there. That's a private road. And like I said, I respectfully request that you limit the construction to reasonable hours. You know, I don't need to have the Mid-Cape showing up at 5 o'clock in the morning, sitting there with their engine idling and listening to it till they showed up and stuff. Plus, weekends, you know, come on, let's be fair to the people in the neighborhood. And we've got weddings, three-day weekends all the time with weddings and stuff there. So I guess those are my main issues, but too bad. Another house down. But, nope. Okay, I will sign for you.
Well, thank you very much, I appreciate that. Okay. Attorney Kroll, Mr. Nickerson raised a couple of points regarding
Sure.
construction time period, as well as, and Mr. Nickerson regarding the parking,
Right,
driveway, and also stormwater management. If you might address all those, I appreciate it.
sure. We want to keep the lots separate. Yes, it adds to the resale value. They don't want to ever sell, according to my clients. I pointed out to them that things happen in this life. Divorces happen, deaths happen, people lose their jobs. You need to prepare for those contingencies, keep them separate. If you merge the two lots, you lose your pre-existing non-conforming status when you merge them. We want to preserve all of those. That gives us the benefit of the Gale case, the Harwich bylaw. Why would we want to give those up? And they wanted to merge them, and I advised them not to do that for those reasons. But yes, they could sell them separately, and they're two separate single-family residences. I agree with Mr. Nickerson that no matter what we do as far as ingress or egress, it's going to be difficult at that intersection. There's no question about that. I think what we're proposing is the lesser of two evils. Most of the time, I would venture to say that my clients would be coming in from Route 28 and turning to the right and going into their house, as opposed to going down to Witchmere Harbor Club. And I don't see that happening that often, that they would be using Snow Inn Road and coming up and Snow Inn Road and stopping short of the intersection and surprising somebody behind them. I think that's less likely to happen than the number of times they're going to be coming in off of Route 28. So I understand and respect his point. We can't eliminate all the risk. I'm just suggesting that it's less risk this way, and safer. As far as parking, we have, in the carriage house, there are 3 bays.
One bay.
I'm sorry, 1 bay.
I think it was parking regarding the easement, was the question. The shared parking regarding the easement.
Oh. Yes, but I think he was raising a question about the number of parking spaces.
Well, if I'm looking at the plan,
Yes,
when you pull into the driveway,
yes.
isn't there parking in front
Yeah.
of the
There's
facility
parking in
here?
front.
There's plenty of parking in that
I just
whole
wanted to
area,
double check that.
out
Okay.
front. Right,
So you have designated parking for both 625, and I know it's the next case, but 68 Snow Road has a parking area
Right.
designated as well.
yes.
Okay, I just want to make
I
sure
think
that I'm reading
we
this
covered
correctly.
that. Now, the 6-foot right-of-way, what's that all about? That's shown on the land court plan back in 1950, 59, and I believe Dave Davis had that done back in the 50s.
Yes, he did. No surprise.
Are you Miss Steer?
I am.
How you doing?
Mr. Kroll,
Good to see you.
nice to see you.
It's been a long time.
Long time.
Since we built that, my family reconstructed the boathouse.
Yes, you did.
If I might digress for a moment,
Go ahead, no,
my family had a construction business.
right, yeah.
Right? For 50 years. And when I was 14, my first job, me and my cousin, our fathers both worked for our grandfather, Fred Kroll Construction. My first job was we got recruited because Lucy Steer, with all due respect, when we built this turnoff to the boathouse that you came off Snow Inn Road to the second floor and there's a door there, she didn't want to step down 8 inches from that turnoff into the boathouse. She didn't want to step down 8 inches, so we had to raise that boathouse by hand 8 inches, right? So how we do that? My grandfather had these old screw jacks, iron plate with this big screw with a hole through the top, and we put an iron bar through, and so they put the little guys that they paid the least to be down in the seaweed and the dirt, and we had to pull those bars and by hand go around
Wow.
the foundation, and we raised that boathouse 8 inches. So you're welcome. You didn't have to step down anymore.
And I'll just point out that you did this around, what year was that?
That would have been 1967-ish.
Yes, and I would have been
8 or 9.
16 years old. So it was actually not me that made the request. It was grandparents and uncle and my dad Bruce. It was all that gang.
We always gave you credit for it. Anyway,
The 6-foot right-of-way, what might that be for?
the 6-foot right-of-way. Surely I digress. In any event, the 6-foot right-of-way, Dave Davis, who owned this property, as I understand it, and he explained to me that there, on the abutting property, there's an equal 6-foot right-of-way. So it's a 12-foot right-of-way, and that was for parking, to pull off of Route 28. He wanted them to each have a parking area, and that's why it's longer and it's 6 feet. It's not used. It's there. And this is a land court title, both of those properties. It would take a very long time and a lot of engineering to make that right-of-way go away. But there's no need for it to go away. It's not being used, and we're already too close to that right-of-way, so the Gale case comes into a play where we can intensify our nonconformity by coming close to that right-of-way, but we're not impeding on it with the new structure anyway. It still could be used and opened up if the two neighbors wanted to do that. Now, also, Mrs. Nickerson raised the issue of runoff, drainage. I mean, the topography is what it is. These structures, there have been dwellings on these properties already in the past for years and years. Can't make that go away. I will say that in Massachusetts, a property owner has no right to create a nuisance on the abutting property's property. So if the folks to the, wouldn't be to the immediate south, but because that's the DeVario, so they're not gonna complain about the runoff on that one, it would be the one south of them.
East, to the southeast.
So
Southeast, east of them. So all I'm saying is we would have to landscape it in such a way that there wouldn't be the runoff.
So I can address this a little
Thank
bit
you, Mike.
further, and I think there certainly calls for a pervious surface from a parking court area standpoint. That's something that would be able to handle its own water and drainage. As far as roof runoff and those things, typically what we would do is call for a subsurface drainage system to take the roof runoff, to take any runoff from the surface and put that into a recharge type of system. The fortunate thing we have there is everything is really sandy. All of that soil is going to drain really well. We're going to be able to capture a lot of, if not all of our surface runoff and water runoff from the pervious surfaces like roofs and things on site. that's something that'll be part of a landscape development, and something that we would certainly be willing to put in a condition, for approval.
Now, if I may also address Mrs. Nickerson's concern about the construction timeframe. So there's, as I indicated earlier, this all would be taking place beginning mid-November, not during the summer months. This board traditionally imposes a restriction that we would abide by, that there would be no substantial destruction or construction or landscaping from July 1 to Labor Day, that Mr. Donahue likes to put on as a condition. We have no objection to that. As far as hours of operation and weekends, no problem with no weekends. I don't know exactly what she's looking for as far as hours of operation during the workdays.
Is there a statute in town for hours that you can't start before a certain time?
I believe that there is.
So we would abide by that.
The noise bylaw. We have one, and I believe it is, I don't wanna say for sure, but we have one, and you can't start before that time.
Mrs. Nixon?
It's 7 a.m.,
That's
which
what
is
I wanted
fine,
to
if that's
say.
what it's gonna be. 7 a.m. is fine.
Okay.
But unfortunately, you know, past experience has shown that they like to start at 6 o'clock on some days. So the other thing is that if it's gonna be 7 o'clock, that's fine, and construction, we would appreciate if you could hold it, no summers, no weekends. I said, and the only other thing, which I should have thought about, Bill, is if they can clean up the site on a daily basis, that would be appreciated too, because I really don't feel like having all their construction stuff in my backyard or front yard.
Understood.
Out of curiosity, is there a runoff problem now with the property? On
Not
water?
that we're aware of, no.
No.
But there's grass now.
There's
Right.
tons of grass.
So, we're going to a, I know it's, you meant about previous services and so forth. Currently, you've got a smaller driveway in the front. And I don't remember if that's paved or stone, I think it's stone.
Shell.
Shells. Now we're going to, a paved area.
No, not necessarily, no.
Well, it says paved driveway on the plan.
Right here.
Okay, so, just one moment, Mr. Nicholson. So the plan is showing a proposed paved driveway. Now, I would think that regarding water runoff, shells or stone would be more pervious and would be another, I think, fight against runoff. Suppose being paved.
Big time, yeah. I think, the goal would be whether or not the driveway is paved, or if it's pervious, our goal would be to capture all of that on site. So whether that runs into a grate that captures that water, that then recharges it into a dry well, the homeowners, they own the property now, they've owned the property for a while. They're not looking to make the situation around the neighborhood worse from
I
a
understand.
drainage
I
standpoint.
realize that.
So we would take it upon ourselves, and I would be happy to convey that to both the landscape designer as well as the contractor regarding whoever that is, which we haven't selected yet, but whoever that would be, we would convey the construction hours bylaw, and as well as doing a daily cleanup on site to make sure no debris was spreading to other parts of the neighborhood.
So currently, there isn't a determination if it's gonna be paved or a pervious material.
So currently, I'm not sure if that would end up being paved or if it ends up becoming a pervious material. If it is paved, we will capture that water on site. And I think if you were to develop that condition that landscape and roof drainage needs to be captured on site, then we would design accordingly. And that there's no additional runoff than what's present there today. There's currently a bituminous driveway behind the structure, and in the front, there's a cobblestone set of what appear to be kind of tire tracks slash, larger tire tracks. I have some photos in front of me if
Okay.
someone wanted to see. There's a cobblestone apron. There's also a paved area going across the 28 side. On the back side, there's a bituminous driveway, which would actually be coming out, and grass would be going in the back of the property. So we'll look at those calculations. We'll look at the current impervious area, and we can design accordingly from there. That's something we can have them do through landscape.
Okay, and you would have no objections if we indicated that in a,
I wouldn't be opposed to that condition, no.
okay. All right. Mr. Nicholson?
Yeah, I was just gonna kind of give some suggestion, because we have a pervious driveway, and it is tile, it is concrete block, and there's 2 foot of stone under it, and it rains, it never runs off, ever.
Yeah.
And we have a very large driveway. So there are driveways, so I would be happy for them to go down that road, because they would not have runoff if it was designed like ours is. Thank you.
Okay.
I think the condition of capturing
Right.
your drainage on site would be, I think would be enough to have us back into a design that would accommodate that.
Okay. All right, is there anybody else who'd like to speak to this application? Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Sullivan, I am the demanding teenager, Lucy Steer, that wanted the boathouse raised when I was 17 years old. Can I ask a question of,
It's nice to have the experience of youth here tonight to talk to you.
can I ask a question of Mr. Kroll? How long do you all anticipate the construction to go on? 4 months, 5 months, 9 months? 2 years?
No, I think you're probably in the 12 to 14 month range.
Okay, so, just very respectfully, I understand that you will stop construction on July 1st, but things really have changed along Snow Inn Road with the development of the Witchmere Harbor Club, as you can imagine, and climate change making everything a little warmer up here. May has become really our new June on that road. Lots and lots of traffic, all kinds of traffic. Where do you anticipate parking all the construction vehicles? Right along Snow Inn Road?
Well, on the plus side here, we have 2 properties, right?
I understand.
And they can be staged such that we have parking on the property. You know,
Okay.
whether it's utilities
what you
going in, septic system.
anticipate?
Well, knowing that area as I know it, I don't see how you could block Snow Inn Road from egress. You certainly can't park on 28. So
Right.
you can't park there. You can't park down Snow Inn Road. I think we have to systematically discuss with the
tricky.
general contractor.
Yeah.
All of the general contractors that we work with on Cape have worked in these areas. So they understand the sensitivity around the neighborhood, and that this is not just a seasonal community either. This is a year-round community. So to the extent that we can keep Snow Inn Road clear, that we can keep the construction vehicles on site, that we can maintain proper hours, that we can keep debris, I don't think those are unreasonable requests.
No,
So I certainly think that's something we can work to accommodate
Good.
on the property
thank you.
and stage them accordingly. And when I say 12 to 14 months, that's really soup to nuts. I think by 6 to 8 months, the structures are up, they're enclosed, they're what we call weather tight.
Right.
And most of the construction towards the end of a project is happening on the interior. Yes, you'll have some exterior landscape, you'll have some hardscape going in, but any of the construction that, from a painting, from a interior trim, cabinetry standpoint, that's all happening on the interior.
Right, so we would want the restriction, Chairperson, to reflect that it's not simply no construction, no landscaping. I believe in the past you've said no substantial demolition and no external construction.
Right, during the summer months.
During the summer months.
That's correct. You can be,
Not just no construction. We still need to, if we got it weather tight, we want to be able to work inside.
yes, personally, myself, I would agree to that, the fact that we normally allow you to be inside.
That you've done historically, yes.
Right.
and no substantial landscaping. But we need to cut the grass, put
Right,
some
yeah,
plants in once in a while, things
Sure.
like that.
Yes, Ms. Nick.
I didn't see any grass on the plans, Bill. But- So, can we get back to the parking minute, please? Because a year or so ago, we were here, and you gave a permit to a group, a person on the corner of Hoyt and Freeman. And part of that was the
Yes.
fact that, all right, you remember that you had really tight quarters, et cetera, and you put in the permit that they were not allowed to park on the street, be it Freeman or Hoyt, okay? And except for one time,
I don't believe we restricted them for
yeah,
parking.
you did. You restricted that they had to park on the property, and Bill, I think that was you, I don't remember though.
It was.
And except for one time, I caught them, one truck that was halfway in the road, they adhered to that. And I'm sorry, guys, but I would expect nothing less on this property also. They've got two pieces of property. If they can't put all their trucks on the property, they need to go elsewhere and ship these guys in or something, because Bay Lane is not an option. It's a private road, snow in. It's hard enough when your buses carrying all the wedding people go down there and everything else. I mean, this is one time that we really need to adhere to no parking on the road.
You're talking about
so.
the construction vehicles being on site
Correct.
on Hoyt. Yeah, okay,
That's a standard
all right.
exclusion.
Yeah, that was a requirement,
Right, but we,
not for residential parking.
No, sir, during construction
During
on that
construction,
one,
I mean,
Yeah,
on
exactly.
Freeman and Hoyt,
the-
correct.
the applicant could still park his car if he wanted to on the street. The issue was the construction vehicles.
Well, there's no parking on Snow Inn, I think, is there? But that's beside the point, but that doesn't stop. But that one on Hoyt and Freeman, that worked out really, really well, and I appreciate, when you put that in there, because that was a huge help for going down there and stuff, so.
On a road like that, that's oftentimes standard, it'll be standard here, I would think. You have to be parked on property.
Yeah, except for there's always going to be the temporary trying to drop off materials.
Right.
Understand that part.
Okay,
That's
that's impossible to.
We've got temporary parking on Snow Inn for
With
landscape
landscaping,
trucks
right.
and all kinds of, there's a lot that's very temporary, like you suggest.
Okay,
There's a
thank you.
lot.
Is there anyone else who wants to speak to this application? Okay, hearing none, I'd like to hear a motion to close the public hearing.
Second.
All in favor?
All in favor of that? Okay, now, any other further discussion by the board? I have one other question.
Not really, no.
When you
Conditions on.
tear down these, this is a very accessible area. When you tear down the houses, there's gonna be foundations. For how long, are there gonna be any open foundations, old foundations for any period of time? And will they be fenced off if that's the case? Because they would be a public, a hazard.
Well, there's certainly things that govern job site and OSHA safety, and yeah, I mean, you have to abide by those things as far as
Okay.
construction
The
goes.
orange tape.
Some of that stuff is inherent in the process, so I wouldn't worry about needing to condition that. So,
Okay, so are you gonna be using any part of the existing foundations?
no,
So all the existing foundations are gonna be filled in, or they're gonna be torn up?
yes.
Okay, all right. Okay. Okay, unless someone's got any further discussion, okay, we'll ask for a motion on the case by the clerk.
Case number 2023-14, Weechmere Harbor Holding LLC, through their attorney, William Kroll. The property is located at 625 Route 28. The board has moved and approved a special permit, have found that the applicant meets the requirements of the bylaw and the Gale and Diedrich cases, as the proposed project will intensify one or more existing nonconformities, will not create a new nonconformity, and will not be substantially more detrimental to the neighborhood than the existing structures. All work will be performed in accordance with the plans submitted with the application. The special permit is granted subject to the following conditions. There'll be no demolition, exterior construction, or new landscaping during the period of June 30 through Labor Day of any year. During the life of the project, all construction vehicles shall be parked on the property and will not, and not on a public street. The next condition is going to be with regard to the runoff, and that'll be through landscaping, captured through the landscaping. There'll be no construction starting prior to 7 a.m. in the morning. And apparently all the waters shall be captured by the builder from the roof line. The impervious driveway will be used however it might be, as was discussed by Mr. Nickerson.
We also agreed to no weekends.
No weekends. Okay. Anything else with regard to condition?
No, no, I'll probably do for the secretary is I'll type up the conditions to make sure that
Okay.
she gets it clearly.
It is a condition of this approval that the violation of the terms and conditions of this permit may be enforced as a violation of the Howard zoning bylaw pursuant to MGL Chapter 48, Section 7, and the Howard zoning bylaw as these may be amended from time to time.
Can I have a second on that motion?
Second.
Any further discussion by the board? All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, it is unanimous.
Thank you very much.
Okay, I'd like to have the, Al, clerk, call the next case.
Okay, case number 2023-15, Michael A. and Michelle A. Davio through their attorney, William Kroll. They're the owners of the property is 68 Snow Inn Road, Assessors Map 15, parcel N 9-2 in the CV zoning district. The applicant seeks a special permit or any alternative to raise and replace the pre-existing non-conforming single-family dwelling pursuant to the Howard zoning bylaw 325, 52, and 54, and Mass General Law, Chapter 48, Sections 6 and 10.
Okay, on relevant notices or requirements by the departments, the Board of Health, the property is deed restricted to 3 bedrooms and no other conditions other than Title V inspection is required, and all setbacks must be maintained. As we discussed in the first case, the Historic Commission reported that 68 Snow Inn Road went to HDAC in October 22, and a demo delay was imposed that expired November 16th, 2023. Attorney Kroll, when you present your case, which you did before, just please, explain the conditions.
Certainly, thank you.
And voting on the case tonight will be Al Donahue, Dave Nunnally, Chris Murphy, Tim Bailey, and John August. And Attorney Kroll, just like to introduce yourselves and the people who are with you, okay?
I want to make sure I got the right voters here. Mr. Murphy, Mr. Donahue, Mr. Nunnally, Mr. August,
Mr. Bailey.
Mr. Bailey. Thank you. For the record, Attorney William Kroll from Harwich Port, and I have Mike Tartamella from Patrick Ahern Architects seated beside me. I'm representing Michael and Michaela DeVerio, owners of 68 Snow Inn Road. Again, going through the setbacks, and I might point out that we were in front of this board during COVID, historic during COVID, and we were in front of this board and obtained a special permit for this same property to renovate it, put on an addition, not totally demolish and replace, and this board granted the special permit unanimously, and we were going to be 12.1 feet from Bay Lane. And if you've been down there, there's a stone wall, that's not changing. That sight line to Bay Lane to Snow Inn Road is not changing with the proposed dwelling here. So why are we back? It's because the DeVerios were able to acquire the property on the corner at 625 Main, and that changed some of their thinking, their aspirations for the property, the design of the property. So they decided that it would be better to demolish and replace this and build the structure that has been designed by Mr. Tartamella's company in conjunction with the DeVerios. So the board did see fit to grant a special permit previously, May 26, 2021, to 12.1 feet from Bay Lane. So in this petition here, the front setback from Snow Inn Road on the east is 30.2 presently, and it will be reduced to 25.5, but that will still meet the 25-foot required setback from a road. So that will be conforming. The southerly setback from Bay Lane is non-conforming at 18.3. It's supposed to be 25, and it will become more non-conforming at 10.3. And as I pointed out, you previously have granted permission for 12.1. What I wanted to maintain was at least a 10-foot setback from the lot line, because that's the old, the former setbacks prior to this 25-foot setback requirement from a road. I'm sorry, it was previously 20. So as far as distances, I know this board generally doesn't like to go too close if there's an immediate abutter, but here it's a road. It's not an immediate abutter. The abutter's across the lane. We've got the stone wall. We've maintained the sight distance, sight line like we did the last time, and this board saw fit to grant that. So I don't think that 10.3 is unreasonable. The northerly setback is presently 19.2 and would become more non-conforming at 6.3 from the steps shown on the plan. The immediate northerly abutter, I think it's safe to assume they would not object to that because it's the DeVerios. Now, if they're sold separately, I know you can make the argument that, well, it's close. But it's still a Gale case situation. We're intensifying a nonconformity. Is it a substantial detriment to the neighborhood? I would argue that it's not, going to the 6.3 from that northerly lot line. The westerly setback is presently 7.2, and that will get better at 10 feet. So we're making it more conforming. Now, the existing conforming building coverage, there was a typo in my narrative. I said the existing non-conforming, and I'm sure you caught that, but I'm just pointing out that was a typo. It should have said the existing conforming building coverage is 15.9%. That will increase to 26.9%, but still below that 50% maximum in that zone, because this is all in the CH1 zone that also allows residential use. The site coverage will remain the same, it's 47.9. It will stay at 47.9 because we're eliminating two existing driveways that are on the site, and those are paved driveways, I believe, and those are becoming, you'll see the square there on the proposed plan, of proposed grass parking area. Grass and patio, not paved driveway. So you've had a chance, I'm sure, to look at the building and elevation plans. And our argument would be that, under the Gale case, again, where this board is allowed to grant a special permit upon a finding that the proposed intensification of nonconformities will not constitute a substantial detriment to the entire neighborhood. Thank you.
Okay, questions on the board? John?
Similar to, I think we answered it on the previous discussion.
No questions.
No questions.
The only question and/or concern that I would have is that 6.3 setback, and that's to the north.
Yes.
And I realize that the people today own that property.
Yes.
The people tomorrow, there's no guarantee who's gonna own that property.
I acknowledge that.
I
yes.
can tell you that I wouldn't wanna buy a house, and it would be detrimental to the value of the property if I had a 6.3-foot setback.
Believe if I'm sorry, I didn't mean to
Please.
cut you
No,
off.
it's fine.
Those steps, as I understand from Mr. Tatamella, are approximately 4 feet in depth. So you're really looking at 10.3 from the building itself.
From 19 point something today, 19.2.
Correct. To 10.3.
I have a concern with that.
Understood. My argument would be that being the case, nevertheless, it's not a substantial detriment to the entire neighborhood. So if a purchaser bought the lot to the north, didn't like it, it has to be under the case law, and the Gale case, it has to be a substantial detriment to the entire neighborhood. And if I can quote Mr. Ryer, who's not here this evening, he has said several times that this board, he doesn't think, and correct me if I'm misquoting, but he doesn't think this board has had a project come in front of it that does devalue substantially the entire neighborhood. He said his thinking is that these projects are an improvement to the neighborhood. They enhance property values, they improve property values, they're not a detriment. So if the board finds that special permit's in order, and we have to have a vote of 4 out of 5 of the members voting, then you're making a decision that it's not a substantial detriment to the entire neighborhood.
I have no questions.
Yeah, I was gonna bring up the same point, actually, Ken did, and the point, the fact that the owner owns both properties certainly is a benefit in this discussion, but to go from 19.2 to 6.3 or to 10, you're talking either a 66% reduction in that side. It's not insignificant, it's pretty significant.
I understand.
So at one point, you have to say, yeah, the value, the overall detriment to the neighborhood, but that's a pretty substantial decrease. You could even say the one from 18.3 to 10, that's a 44% reduction in its size to the sideline.
If Mr. Tatamella wants to comment also, he's free to do so, but I think there's been a lot, we've been working on this project for 2 years.
2 years.
To come up with a house that the property owner, that works for the property owners, and they think fits in with the neighborhood and the size of similar houses, dwelling, single-family residences in the neighborhood. And they have an entire chart to show the percentages of all the houses in the immediate neighborhood. So my point being that there's been a lot of thought, a lot of expense put into the design of these plans. It's not a small expense. It's a large expense to redesign.
So,
Go ahead.
if I may, so I know that the homeowners had come to you before for a renovation of the house that's there right now. The house that's there right now is actually a 3-story home. We were not involved in that design process. We weren't retained at that point. But after seeing the design that was presented, I think what was presented didn't really fit into the neighborhood. And the fact that it was going to cost them so much money to renovate a house that was in need of more dire repair, it really becomes more cost effective in today's economy to tear the house down. So that's enter us at that point. Our philosophy and our sort of design philosophy is that, you know, we really take into consideration the mass and scale of the locale that we're working in. In this case, we've developed a design that really becomes a 1.5-story, almost 2-story house versus the 3-story house that's there today. I think because of that, we see a little bit of footprint expansion. Now, we have the benefit of the owner owning the property to the north. And as you mentioned, while it's a substantial detriment to them, they're willing to take that risk as well in terms of value of the two properties. But because we've developed something that is more in keeping with the scale of the surrounding homes, the footprint expanded slightly. And in this case, we're looking at case law to say, how can we use the current nonconformities to our advantage? We're still under lot coverage percentages of other homes in the neighborhood. We're still under height restriction. We're still under square footage of building lot. So I think based on the cards that were dealt here and the development of the property on 25 to support the family home, they're, you know, as Mr. Crowell said, they're a family of 5. They have 3 children. It's something that they want to make a multi-generational home out of. So I don't think there's any intention to look for this relief and then sort of parcel off and sell the land for financial gain. I think if anything, deciding to expand the house where they've expanded it, I don't think is more substantially detrimental than what else is going on in the neighborhood. But I think to your point, if there's anybody that would suffer detriment from that, it would be them if they went to sell the 625 lot. So if anything, they're sort of hurting themselves from a value standpoint. But at the end of the day, these 2 properties will look as if it's one property. Visually, it's going to look as if it's one property. There's been a lot of intent and thought put forth with siting the 2 structures and being able to maintain clear view from the street, being able to be set back from Snow Inn Road, and also to be in keeping with the mass and scale of the surrounding homes that are there. So I certainly appreciate Mr. Crowell explaining the process we've gone through with the homeowners. It has been very involved. But that's the reason why we're before you tonight, to look for some of that relief on some of those numbers, because we're in such a really tight area here and trying to preserve open space and the space between the buildings and maintain that for outdoor use.
You mentioned earlier, Mr. Ryer has made several comments. One thing he's also has said repeatedly since I've been on the board, and I think we follow the same thing, is that this does not set a precedent for future cases either. So the fact is,
Does not, right.
contracting it like that, the fact that the neighbor is himself, that's really having a bad detriment. But it's an important consideration on all these projects that, I mean, cutting that down to 6 feet from 20 is
Well, again, that's the step.
taking a lot of liberties with the Gale case.
That's the step. I'm arguing that it's more like 10.3. But I understand and respect your point. But as you say, Mr. Murphy, these cases are all unique. Whenever I try to say, well, you did one like this down the street, last year, it's, well, no, there's no precedent, we treat them all on their own merits. And we've got a very unique situation here, where this couple happens to own both properties now, and wants to have, as Mike said, a multi-generational situation here. Might call it a compound, but it will look like one lot. And I agree with his point that if anybody's value is impacted by being close to the northerly boundary, it's their other lot. They wouldn't be able to sell it, either one, for as much. So I'm hoping you see your way, despite your concerns, to those voting, to keep in mind that we need 4 out of 5 to approve, and you've previously approved the lot adjacent this evening.
I have no other questions.
Yeah, I do mirror Ken and Chris's concerns, but and I do look at it as not looking at the steps, but as the 10-foot situation as far as in the side yard setback. Now, this would not be the first home where we've approved structures. And again, we don't say we did it before, but being 10 feet from a lot line isn't all that uncommon. And I'm trying to, as I went down Snow Road, there were other properties that I thought had similar setbacks in the 10-foot or closer range.
Yeah.
And even the property that we just approved, the 625, the rear setback is in that 10-foot area as well. So it's not, the 10 feet isn't all that uncommon to a lot line. I realize it says 6.25, but visually looking at it, and given the steps which have to be considered, but they're low. I mean, it's just, visually, it's not that we're saving 3 or 4 feet, 30 feet high. There is a difference there.
If I may, most of the older neighborhoods, it's a 10-foot setback. So as long as the two houses are 20 feet apart, people find that livable in most of the older neighborhoods in town.
What is the distance between this house and 625 as far as what's the gap there?
Well, 10.7 on the proposed house on 625 from this lot line, and we, if you exclude the steps, we'd be more like 10.3, so you'd be over 20 feet.
27, almost 30 feet.
No,
20 feet.
You said
This
the
is
the 10,
10.7,
oh, 10 plus the,
And
plus the
then
10 here, sorry.
10.3.
20 feet.
So you'd be 21 feet.
Appreciate your new math, but I just want to get into it.
The rounding error, my
Okay,
apologies.
that's all right. It's all right, no.
Be 21 feet.
So there's visually going to be a 20-foot separation between the two houses. And looking at the neighborhood, this won't be the first house that has, within 6 or 10 feet from the lot line. So I don't know it's going to be standing out
Yeah.
substantially. And that's just my thoughts on that.
Our research
Yeah,
substantiates
You know,
that.
I would mention that down Snow Inn Road, 64, 62, 54, all of those are, what are visually from the GIS appear to be within 10 feet of the property line on the side yard. But to your point, the abutting house leaves another 10-plus feet, so it has the appearance of more.
Right, it's not going to look like an apartment complex.
Right.
The other thing I struggled with was, and I realize we have to do each case separately, but the impact of the two houses together regarding the neighborhood versus the one. And I didn't bring that up in the last case because we have to look at each case separately as far as their detriment, if any, to the neighborhood. And I don't want to confuse things by trying to look at the complex together, because you have to take each case separately. But I do feel the fact that the gap there And given what's happened in the rest of the neighborhood on side yard and, setbacks, it isn't that unusual for that neighborhood. At least that's in my opinion. Okay? All right. So I'm sure
And
here.
I'm not sure if I understood that totally, Mr. Chairperson, but my original point at the beginning was, this is going to be, these two dwellings together visually are gonna be, I think, a significant improvement
I agree.
to that area.
I agree, but there's still, because of the distance between the two houses, it's no necessarily look, to the person driving by, as one complex.
It should not.
Not at all.
No, it will not.
No,
I mean,
it won't.
You kind of made that comment, the fact that we're looking at, it look like a compound. I don't believe there's enough separation.
There's enough separation where they're separate dwellings, and it's 21 feet apart, yes.
And regarding selling the property, these are high-end homes. I'm sure it's not gonna go on the market the week after this is completed, because people who are gonna be paying that type of a price range probably don't want to split the use of the patio and their grills. Okay. More than likely, I don't see that happening,
I don't see it happening, and,
all right? I don't see a fence going up between the patio, so I don't, Huh? You can save on propane, there you go.
I will also mention that Mr. DeVario has roots in Harwich because he grew up in Harwich.
Excellent. Okay. Did all members speak to this, right? Okay, went different order. I'd like to open up the meeting to the public. Would anybody here like to speak to this case?
Bob Nickerson, I assume you're gonna take all the same conditions you had on the last case and impose them on this case? As far as construction and parking and et cetera, right?
Yes.
Yes.
I believe the board will discuss that, but I
Right,
would
I'm
not-
just saying, assuming that, I
expected
don't,
it-
because once you close, I can't talk again, so I just
Sure.
wanted to throw that out there.
We'll
Yeah.
always call on you, Mr. Dickerson, that's okay.
The other question I have is, what's the height of the structure they had previously, like a year ago that was approved and they were gonna do? Do you know
I
offhand?
don't have that. I do not. Bill may have.
Is it-
Well, actually, what is the current height of the current house versus what you're gonna be building?
I think that's what he's asking. I don't
Yeah, I
have the
think this
current
current,
house.
the new one is like 28 feet, isn't that roughly?
28 feet's the new house,
2711
yeah.
or something like that. I was just curious, because he said we kind of shrunk the house, but we might have shrunk it this way, but we didn't shrink it this way, because it went from 15% or so coverage to 26% rough numbers, so
Yes, sir.
that's almost a 50% increase, so, thank you.
So a clarification, we changed what's a 3-story house now to a 2-story house, 1.5 story with 1.5 story elements to it. So there's 3 floors in the house today. There will not be 3 floors in the house.
Yeah, but there's still, it's probably with the, we're not saving 10 feet here. I mean, this is probably, the existing house is somewhere around 30 feet, and I believe, before you get to the chimneys, you're somewhere around 28 to 29 feet. So it's still within code,
Yeah.
but it's gonna look the same height.
2711 on the plan.
Yeah, there's not gonna be a major height difference between
Still
the two.
close to 30.
No, and I don't think that's inconsistent with the houses in the area either.
Yeah, no, I'm not saying it's
Yeah,
not
yeah.
inconsistent, I'm just saying but it's not like the house is losing a floor.
No, I don't think we're trying to represent that the house is all of a sudden getting 10 foot shorter.
Yeah, I just wanna,
I think when we talk about this number of stories, we're talking about mass and scale too.
I understand. Yes,
Barbara Nickerson again. So I guess from a personal standpoint, since I live in that neighborhood and walk in that neighborhood and have been there for a long time, just because we have large houses up and down Snow Inn doesn't mean that they're not on larger lots. This is kind of like 10 pounds of something in a 5-pound bag, where we're 6 foot from here, 8 foot from here, to the point where we're covering almost the whole lot, looking at it from. So while it may be, when you look at the house, maybe it's not as massive as it looks like, you think it's gonna look like, which I don't agree with, but it really is because you don't have that size lot. If you go down to Helfrich's and everything, I agree, you've got, 8 or 10 foot between houses down there, but that's not necessarily the case on the northern end of Snow Inn. And just because we did it before, doesn't mean we have to continue something that's not very tasteful.
Is there anyone else like to speak to this application? Hearing none, I'll ask for a motion to close the public hearing. Okay, and a second?
Aye.
Okay. I have a vote on the closing of the open meeting.
Aye.
All in favor?
Mr. Chairperson, if I may, because there's a significant impact to the project if this one did not pass and the other one did, would it be possible to ask for a straw vote, because we need 4 out of 5? Because if it's not in our favor, then we cannot come back with a substantially similar project for 2 years.
I realize that.
So if we could read the tea leaves a little bit, that might make us feel better.
No, I understand. That was the, any further discussion by the board? Now, regarding further discussion, might take a, again, as suggested, a straw situation of how we are all feeling on this. And, again, voting, John?
Be in favor.
Okay. David?
In favor.
Al?
Favor of it.
The, Chris?
I'd be in favor.
All right, Ken?
I'm not voting, I don't believe.
Mr. Bailey?
Oh, excuse me, I'm sorry, Mr. Bailey, thank you.
In favor.
That, then we'd like to proceed.
Vote away.
But thank you for doing that.
All right, well, now as we, in further discussion here, just to verify, we're going to be including all the same additions that the conditions that we did in the first case. Just to, because being at the meeting is, the conditions are so varied, I'll be discussing it, but I will be writing them out further later,
Right.
and giving to the board secretary to make sure that everything's properly, included that we might have missed, okay? And,
Feel free to email those to me to review before you sign the decision if you want.
Sure,
Okay, that'd be great. Thanks.
I'll be happy to do that, okay? What I can do is after the thing gets typed up by the secretary, the full thing, send it to you so you can see everything,
Right. Yes,
the whole thing, not just the
Yes.
conditions.
right. Thank you.
Okay. All right, I'd like to ask a motion from the clerk.
All right, case number 2023-15, Michael A. and Michaela A. Davio, through their attorney, William Kroll, have been granted a special permit, having found that the applicant meets the requirements of the bylaw of the Gale and Dietrich cases. As the proposed project will intensify one or more existing nonconformities, will not create any new nonconformity, and will not be substantially more detrimental to the neighborhood than the existing structures. All work shall be performed in accordance with the plans submitted with this application. The special permit is granted subject to the following conditions. There will be no demolition, exterior construction, or new landscaping during the period of June 30 to Labor Day of any year. During the life of the project, all construction vehicles shall be parked on the property and not in a public way or road. There'll be no construction prior to 7 AM in the morning. And the next one will be, there'll be no the runoff controls will be captured on site through the way the roof is designed and landscaping. The driveway should be constructed in such a manner as to capture also that same runoff. Okay, it is a condition of this approval that the violation of the terms and conditions of the special permit may be enforced as a violation of the Howard zoning bylaw pursuant to MGL Chapter 40A, Section 7, and the Harwich zoning bylaw as these may be amended from time to time.
I think the only thing I might have missed was, I think we discussed no weekend work.
Oh, okay. And that condition is being further added to with regard to no work on the weekends.
Any discussion about the motion?
We need a second.
I realize that when we've
Oh,
been
I'm
discussing
sorry.
the motion,
I'm sorry.
but, all right, can I have a second for the motion? But thank you. Second, Chris? Right, normally I ask for the motion, and then I do for discussion, but that's okay.
Really?
No,
You have to
normally I
have a
ask the
second.
second first, and then I go for the.
Then you go for the discussion.
Discussion
right.
afterwards, okay. All right, no revisions, like to vote on the motion? All those in favor? Motion approved.
Thank you very much for all your time, consideration, concerns, et cetera, comments.
And I-
Appreciate it.
I'd like to thank the neighbors, everyone that came here, discussion, I thought that was very helpful, all your input. Hopefully, we put a better project together because of your involvement tonight.
For the next one?
It's nice to see you. It's been a long time. Stop at Central Parks. Central Parks. This place is so crazy.
We do good work, it lasts a long time.
It's really true. Anyway, thank you.
You're
It was a
Yes, it was.
If I could just request just a 5-minute, 8-minute break here for restroom break, we appreciate it, so, all those in favor of taking a break? We're gonna approve it regardless.
Hey.
So we'll make it for Tuesday, is that?
Fine with me, make it a Wednesday as far as I'm concerned.
Well, Wednesday, I'm.
Oh, you're busy.
Well, I assume I'll be playing, I put in.
Yeah, it's the league, yeah, okay. Yeah. Yeah.
battery just died.
Off the phone?
I told you I played on,
We'll come back up.
I played my son Sunday, I think it was. I defined ugly
I thought I had
all over again. Didn't play well.
So I'm out driving range, got a big bucket, and I was just like in a groove, like everything was like. And I get out, it's just like drives you crazy, right? But some of it's the foot, but some of it's,
Yeah. Well, Dean had.
I was riding with Dean,
You were driving, I hope.
I was driving. And so, he calls me up, goes, well, I'm down here, I'm getting a card. I go, you there already? He goes, yeah, I'm there already. So I go, I'm there. He's not nowhere to be seen.
No.
And then like 7 or maybe 12 minutes before, I finally go, I've been driving range, and I come up and, I said, where's Dean? He hasn't gotten a car yet. Because he hasn't checked in? No. So he's apparently told me that he was already there when I was still at home. So I said, fine, give me the card, and I'll go try to find him. So I go down there, he's on the driving range, he's got a full double bucket. He's just hitting away. Like, we got 7 minutes to go here. Dean, you gonna golf? Yeah, 12:40, right? No, 12:20.
Yeah, when I talked to him today, he told me he had all kinds of balls to,
He does.
I think he took a page from my book.
So we had to run out.
Yeah. But, well, the other day when we played, he was pretty well cooked after 11.
Yeah.
Boy, he wasn't feeling very well.
No. Well, he hasn't done much, right? Because of his hernia, he couldn't do much.
No, not at all. I mean, that, I gotta think that was still uncomfortable, regardless, you know?
I don't know, maybe he's hopefully over it by now.
Yeah,
So he,
but he'll never complain about it.
no, so I took extra efforts to make sure he didn't have to walk very far.
So you're a good person.
And driving up close.
Did you, get the, thing on the cart?
I did,
Did, I neglected to do that.
I know. He was complaining.
He did, he complained, and I apologized to him
So I
profusely.
went, I said, Joe, I asked the woman at the starter shed, that said, how does that work? I mean, can I just get one? Because this guy here, COPD and all sorts of problems, so it'd be really helpful if we could get this to speed the course along. And she just plugs in.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, we're back.
Alrighty. All right, case number 2023-16. William M. Redhan, through their attorney, James Norcross Esquire, is the owner of property located at 37 Lake Ave, Pleasant Lake Ave, assessors map 50, parcel J3, in an RM zoning district. The applicant seeks a special permit to construct a single-family dwelling pursuant to these Harwich zoning bylaws 325-54 and Mass General Law, Chapter 40A, Section 10.
Okay, the applicant has requested a continuance till the June meeting, which is June 28th. I think that's what it said. So, I'd like to make a motion that we do accept the continuance to June 28th.
Yep.
All right, all those in favor?
Aye. Right, case number 2023-16, William M. Redhan, through his attorney, James Norcross, owner of 37 Pleasant Lake Ave. This case has been continued to June 28, 2023.
Al, if you might read the next case?
Certainly. Case number 2023, William H. and Karen Q. Doherty, through their attorney, William D. Kroll. They're the owner of the property located at 13 Shaggy Pines Road, assessors map 4, parcel F4-4, in the RH1 zoning district. The applicant seeks a special permit or, in the alternative, a variance to construct an additional deck on a pre-existing non-conforming single-family dwelling pursuant to the zoning bylaws, the Howard zoning bylaws 325, 52, and 54, the Mass General Law, Chapter 40A, Sections 6 and 10.
Mr. Chairman, I am an abutter of an abutter of this property, so I'm going to recuse myself from the discussion.
Okay. John, if you wouldn't mind sitting in the audience and, and I don't believe your accusal takes away from your opportunity to speak in behalf of the person as well, okay, so. Then, voting, as of today, I didn't see any comments, notice requirements received by any other departments. Okay.
There was a Board of Health letter.
Boy, wait a second, I missed that?
Managing the setback for the septic?
Yes.
Yes, thank you, I missed that.
You're welcome.
So yes, Board of Health has indicated I reviewed the application, special permit to add an addition and deck to 13 Shaggy Pine Roads. The Health Department only concern is that all setbacks to the septic must be maintained.
And that will be the case. Moran Engineering, Mr. Dan Croto has indicated that will be addressed, again, prior to us getting a building permit. We have to keep the Board of Health happy.
Okay, voting on this tonight, in this case, will be Al, Dave Nunnally, Chris Murphy, Tim Bailey, and Ken Dixon. And Chair asks the applicant, representative, to introduce themselves and to any person assisting.
My thanks to the chair. My name is Attorney William Kroll, for the record, from Harwichport, and I have seated with me William Doherty. His wife Karen is not speedily coming down Route 6. She was unable to attend tonight. So he's here. If you remember Dr. David Doherty, who's still with us, but his practice medicine for many years in Harwich, Dr. Doherty and Dr. Dolan were the go-to doctors. So that's Bill's father. This property in question, I like to have some historical connection, having lived here for so long. It helps me if I make those connections. This property is on the north side of Lower County Road. The first case tonight was on the south side. This is on the north side. And the petitioners are seeking a special permit from this board to expand the family room as shown on the proposed conditions plan by Moran Engineering, dated April 14, 2023. They want to expand the family room, expand the front entrance, add a deck on the front and east sides, and dormers on the rear side of the pre-existing non-conforming single-family residence. So the deck will wrap around the front on the right side a little bit, and they will have a front entrance that will have a roof over it, and then expand the family room. The deck will come down and wrap around the connect to the family room, and the family room is not creating any new bedrooms. It's a family room when you look at the floor plans. So the west side of the house is non-conforming at 15 feet. We're not changing that. Nothing's happening on that side. The front setback is 33.9. It will remain conforming at 32.5 from the proposed deck on the front of the house. The rear setback is 27.9 and will remain conforming at 21.2. The east side of the dwelling is non-conforming at 14.5, so this is another where do you draw the line situation, and will become somewhat more non-conforming at 10.5, but I point out that the 10.5 is where the bay window or where the shape of the family room bellies out, let's say. Shouldn't say a bay window, but it bellies out to 10.5, but most of the construction, the structure on the east side will be 12 feet from the easterly lot line, not 10.5. Most of it will be 12 feet, and existing is 14.8. The building coverage is 15.6, which is 30% max. That will remain conforming or go up a little bit to 19.3, but certainly under 30%. The site coverage is at 23.6%, goes up to 34.9, but it will be under the 35% max of site coverage. So we're seeking to intensify the existing nonconformity as far as setback on the easterly side. Everything else is conforming, building coverage, site coverage, northwest, south setbacks, all conforming. We're seeking to go basically a little under 3 feet closer on the easterly side with the proposed renovations. Our contention would be that there would be no substantial increase, will be no substantial increase in noise, odors, fumes, congestion, or the like, traffic. This will not constitute a nuisance and would not be a substantial detriment to the entire neighborhood. We'd ask that you grant the special permit for the Dohertys this evening. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. I'd like to ask the board members for their comments or questions. David?
I don't have any questions.
Al?
I have no questions.
No questions.
No questions?
No questions.
Are the Celtics playing again tonight?
I'm disappointed. No, believe me, I'm not. We gotta turn to the Red Sox now.
I just turned to my final page, and unfortunately, I don't have any questions either.
Love it.
The,
Just make a favor, but it doesn't seem like necessary.
is there anybody, I'd like to open this to public comments, or anybody in the audience who wants to say anything? Okay. Hearing none, I will ask for a motion to close the public hearing.
So moved. Second.
So is that Ken?
Yep. So moved.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any additional discussion by the board?
No.
Do you want a straw vote on this one?
I'm sorry?
Do you want a straw vote on this one?
I'll pass on that, thank you anyway.
All right, so I will entertain a motion on the case.
Case number 2023-17, William H. and Karen Q. Doherty, with their attorney, William Kroll. They're the owners of property located at 13 Shaggy Pine Road. The board has moved to grant a special permit and have found that the applicant meets the requirements of the bylaw, Hale and Dietrich cases. Excuse me. As a proposed project will intensify one or more existing nonconformities, will not create a new nonconformity, and will not be substantially more detrimental to the neighborhood than existing structures. All work shall be performed in accordance with the plans submitted with the application. There will be no demolition, exterior construction, or new landscaping during the period of June 30 to Labor Day of any year. During the life of the project, I don't recall this, I know the street, but,
Yeah, I apologize, we should discuss this.
yeah,
Just a little discussion back. What is the time frame that you were considering for the project?
Fall, nothing this summer. Won't start till the fall.
Okay, so the first
Okay.
condition would not be an issue.
Right.
yes.
The street itself, it's, I mean, it's not a huge street, but it's,
No.
it's somewhat reasonable. Has there been consideration how you're gonna handle construction vehicles?
It's not that large in an addition, of an addition. You got parking here. Would you be anticipating parking vehicles here?
I anticipate that they would be able to park on the front lawn. The septic is in the back, so that shouldn't be an issue. And part of our increase of the site coverage is to expand our parking area, given the size of the street.
So you could fit pickup trucks from various tradesmen
Yes.
on the front yard?
They can
Okay.
fit between the street and where we currently have a split rail fence now. We do park there in the summertime,
Where's that?
right along the edge of the street.
Oh, okay.
There's enough room there. But I do plan on taking that fence down, so should be space there for them.
Between the edge of the pavement and where the fence is that what you're saying?
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
Yep.
Okay, so they could just parallel park to the road
Yes, we do that now.
and not on the pavement?
Correct.
Go ahead, Al.
All right, during the life of the project, all construction vehicles shall be parked on the property and not in any public street or road. It is a condition of this approval that a violation of the terms and conditions of the special permit may be enforced as a violation of the Harwich zoning bylaw pursuant to MGL Chapter 48, Section 7, and the Harwich zoning bylaw as these may be amended from time to time.
Can I have a second on the motion?
Second.
Any further discussion by the board? Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you very much. And if I may, I believe you, in order to discuss a motion, you have to have the second in place first, and then go to discussion under the normal rules. Robert's
Okay,
Rules of
I
Order.
was, all right. I was following what David Ryer had laid out for me, but we will go against that. That's fine. I
Without the
appreciate- I would-
second,
I
without
would- I
the
will
second,
change
it's
my-
not in order to be, for discussion without the second.
Go.
Al
let me
makes a
go to further
motion, it's
discussion.
outrageous.
All right, so
Nobody
how we've been
seconded.
doing it is, we get the second motion, any further discussion by the board, and then we revise the motion as needed, and then vote on the motion. But that's. but you're-
Motion,
you're-
second,
Okay.
discussion.
I'll make that change, I appreciate the input.
You're welcome. Having served as substitute moderator to Mr. Ford a few times now, I have to know some of these rules.
Gotta move the vote.
That one,
Yes.
yes.
I'm still in my rookie
The
season.
motion passed, and I so declare it.
That one, yes. I subbed, you probably didn't stay up, not this past, not last month, but a year ago. Each time he has had a conflict with the cultural center. Bill, it's not gonna be a big deal. And last year was, they were trying to get through the warrant, it was the next to the last article to keep people there, and it didn't even get started on the debate until 11. And once it starts, you can't adjourn, you can't make a motion to adjourn. So it got done at midnight that night, was when I stepped down
That
from,
was the second night.
That
That was
was-
last year?
a year ago,
year ago,
yes, yeah,
Didn't the first night go till like 1 or 2 or
No.
something ridiculous?
no.
Just till midnight?
No, he doesn't take an article, doesn't start an article after 10:30 ordinarily. So the first night ended by 11. It was the second night that went till, that I was substitute at 11 and got done at 12:15. That was a long
It
time.
was.
Anyway,
I surprisingly caught COVID about 5 days after that.
out with the masses. All right, thank you very much,
My pleasure. Thank
gentlemen,
you.
for all your time.
Here. How was the graduation? Now she's off the payroll, you can afford an addition, right?
That's gonna be the tricky part. Thank you all.
Okay. All right, so we have no minutes from last meeting. As a matter of fact, they haven't been done at all. You know, Leisha is now working majority of the week for the Conservation Board, the Conservation Commission, and some of the secretarial duties have not been passed off yet. And I did not realize the fact that minutes weren't being done. For several months, I did the minutes in the fall and early winter, you know, when they were, particularly when they didn't have a building commissioner. But I checked with Leisha today, and she said they'd been assigned off to someone in the selectman's office to do minutes. She's gonna follow up with that. If it does get delayed, I'll go back and redo the minutes again and get that squared away for our votes, but, so, there are no minutes from the April meeting. The,
You know, you should not be doing minutes.
No, what I've been doing, then the secretary's supposed to go over, what I was doing, I've been doing them. The secretary then, she runs through it, double checks, make sure everything's fine, and then she signs off on it. So it's not just me doing the minutes, okay? But I was doing the bulk of the stuff to get it done, and get things through, because they had a lot of labor shortage at that particular
They need
point.
to staff up.
Does this board have a secretary?
Not anymore.
Not anymore. It's Leisha, so she's still doing it part-time, but she's transferred to the Conservation
I
Commission.
just thought, I want to know if any officer here was anointed, is there chair, vice chair,
There is no secretary, just chair and clerk. All right. Okay, old business,
Excuse me, who's our,
Mr. Ballantyne, the selectman liaison,
yes,
Mr. Ballantyne, but that's gonna be, with the July, that will be reassigned. Because the term of the selectman goes through, Goes through June.
The selection should make the move to correct the problem so that you're not involved in doing these minutes.
yeah, no, and it's, again, typically I'm not supposed to be doing them,
Oh,
it's
yeah.
supposed to be done by but when I was putting them together and drafting them all, I was doing a draft, she was going back over it, she occasionally made a correction, and so we can get things recorded and, out the door, okay, because there was just no labor, it was just one person there without a building commissioner, and one building inspector. I mean, she went through, I mean, she was a, one-armed paper hanger for a while, so it did, and it made me certainly respect the kind of work that she does in doing all that kind of stuff. Okay, a few things. The 100 Route 28, as you all know, that got approved from the planning board. And you saw that email, I sent out the email regarding all that. That relief, and I think I got it here someplace here. I was basically looking at code and really taking a situation where it wasn't totally clear and applying it to this two-family house. And I sent you all a report. So it is not, I made the recommendation to the planning board director, as well as our building commissioner, that the code needed to be adjusted, changed, so that non-conforming lots under 40,000 square feet that are in the same zone that allows for multifamily, which, John, you had found that code in the last meeting, said, here's what works, but multifamily is 3 residents or more. So it's crazy the fact that that lot at 100 Route 28 could not do a multifamily situation, whereas we had another lot in town that was going for 10 units on a smaller lot, could. Because they were under 40,000 square feet, and since it's going for multifamily, it got approved for multifamily under those codes that you pointed out. But since this is a two-family, it was like in no man's land.
At what point do you become multifamily, right? Is it more
It's
than
three
one?
or more.
Yeah, which doesn't make any sense.
Right. So I requested that they consider looking for a zoning change to adjust for two-family residences to be able to, that are under 40,000 square feet of non-conforming, to be able to qualify under the same multifamily zoning. So it says so it'd say multifamily and two-family housing in, those are districts that are allowed to be able to go for a two-family house. All right? Just want you to be aware of that and make sure there's no objections to that request, okay? Now, in meeting with Paul and Jack, they are extremely cooperative. okay? You know, prior to becoming chair and other building commissioners and planning board directors, you know, quality people that are doing an excellent job, but this teamwork with the two of them, they are very proactive on working with this board on making sure that things go right for the applicants and the public. And they definitely want to start to clear up issues with the zoning code for clarifications. Now, more than likely, in case, when I'm not certain regarding the code, and I have questions about it, you know, I have been meeting with the two of them and getting their input regarding what their thoughts are as far as understanding the code from their point of view. And that's helped quite a bit, as well as the research that I do has been improving some of their thoughts about certain situations, all right? So what they want to do is, and for all of us, to start gathering monthly, whatever, anything we find, to go through applications that are code that is, you know, really not definitive, you know, to start keeping track of that, and we're gonna keep in a file, you know, so for consideration when we go to town meeting, you know, in the springtime, to propose zoning changes. Okay? So that is, and at some point here, we'll have the building commissioner come and meet with us. When I look at it, it's a short month, you know, short meeting where we can have him come and sit down and you guys all meet him. Of course, at any time, you can always call him up and go in yourselves, and as you pick up your packets, you know, feel free, if Jack is available, or schedule a time, you pick up your packet and ask him, like to, you know, spend 10 minutes and say hi and discuss things, feel free. Okay, they would be very happy to do that.
I would
Yeah.
echo your, I mean, I have to work with Jack on the last thing, but I also, as, you know, having a, you know, bed and breakfast, I have to inspect it every year, and it's a noticeable change with Jack.
Yeah, and if you had the opportunity to sit down with Paul, you'd find the same thing. You know, when we're doing the zoning change there for the ADUs, you know, we brought the concerns or the suggestions of this board went before I brought them to Paul's attention. And, but we sat down and hashed out the verbiage and worked out fine, and he was very happy to consider our input. Whereas I didn't feel in the past, that opportunity didn't seem to present itself.
It wasn't there.
Bluntly, you're right, okay? I was trying to be a little better by saying it didn't present itself, but it didn't exist. You'll also find that, and again, it comes down to how code is interpreted. Now, Al and Chris would notice this, and not as much Dave and Tim, but since you've seen Jack involved here, we haven't had anyone come before us for a special permit to convert their basement into an entertainment situation. You know, all they want to do is finish it off, put in some heat, and put in a pool table. Well, in the past, those people were told they had to get a special permit. All right? Well, Jackson, and we never denied anybody. No one got denied unless they were considered a bedroom situation, and that got into septic systems and so forth, or whatever, and egresses. But if they wanted to be putting in just a family room downstairs, they had to go in front of a special permit. You haven't seen one of those since Jack's been here. Because Jack's interpretation, again, you can interpret these things a couple different ways. On the creation of additional habitable space, Jack's all set with that, because there's no changes to the outside setbacks. There's no changes to how it impacts the neighborhood. And it seems logical to say, yeah, you want to finish your basement off? You know, you make sure that they got proper electrical and building and all, you know, construction situations and proper egresses, but that's all a factor of the building commissioner. And he's no longer sending them, like the past building commissioner did, to just clog up our schedule. So you know, I think there's a lot of common sense going through the whole thing. You know, and I can tell you that, you know, I've seen, I won't get into any particular cases, because they're not open to open meeting at the moment, but, you know, I've sat down with them, and they've discussed and looked at, as they did with 128. I sat down with the two of them and said, we gotta figure out a way how this guy can, this is the right location to do a multifamily. We gotta figure this out. And, you know, that's when they reviewed, and they found the code, which they felt would sustain itself, and if anybody objected in a court situation, that it would be upheld. We still want to make sure that anything that we do can be upheld if somebody appeals our decision. And, so they've been very helpful as far as working with applicants, you know, to get the right thing done, and do the right thing by an applicant, as well as for the public good, okay? All right. Okay, so that's enough of that. Any questions on 100, on discussions with the two of them? Aquasit Resort. So the update on there, the Attorney Rose did send a letter in to the planning board in response to the letter, or the argument that the attorney for the abutter made, Attorney Ford, was sent into the planning board, and all that was sent to the town's attorney for the town's attorney's opinion. Now, prior to that, I had sent in a letter to the planning board, to Paul, indicating some of the areas where the zoning board was concerned, that requesting that those concerns be incorporated as it was prudent to do so to the town's attorney. And so the town's attorney has not responded back, you know, to the letters from Ford, Rose, as well as the request from the planning board. They have the Aquasit Resort. We're not going to see that in our June meeting, because their meeting, I don't believe so. We could. Our meeting's the 28th. They're meeting with the planning board on the 27th. So it is possible that could be in the agenda. I don't know it yet. Okay? All right? I'm assuming there's no questions on that. Okay. So that's on old business. One other thing on, in a way, old business. You know that I had at the last meeting when we had 91 Punkhorn discussion on that private road, which was, you know, four-wheel drive vehicles only. Okay, I thought that was kind of ridiculous. That was my opinion. But again, the zoning board has no jurisdiction how a private road is maintained. Now, I did some searching in this whole thing. And came up with the following: policy on waivers for ways and minor streets on November 5th, 2009.
Where did you find that?
Hey, I've been digging, okay?
No doubt
Okay, want
about
to
it.
pass that down?
Yeah.
Okay. No, actually, I had a long discussion with Paul about it, and on that discussion, and also based upon a case that they're working with, he dug up this past policy. Now, please understand, this is a policy by the planning board, which was enacted, so it's a policy of the planning board, not zoning code, okay? But this is when people are going from the planning board for subdivisions and so forth. Now, regarding this came as a result of the fire and police and highway departments, engineering departments, had approached the planning board at that time, saying like, private roads and ways, we've got to get a better handle on this. Because the concern was at the time, on highway vehicles and particularly police and fire, accessing and going down these roads, and in time of emergency, doing so on a timely basis. Now, I was bothered by, or realizing that, I've been other private roads that I've been on, from being on the zoning board, which have brought some concerns to me. But this one, because of the length, and it's not the only one in town that has issues. So what this kind of basically says is that a private road has to maintain a specified clearance regarding height as well as width. But at the moment, this policy exists, but there's no mechanism in town that seems to be going forward that is maintaining.
The police and fire can push that.
Correct, okay? So, and I know the planning board is starting to take a look at this situation. Now, as you may be aware, when you see those reports that come from other departments, every time there's an application, they get sent out to the police, conservation, historic, all those departments, police and fire, for any kind of input. What I'd like to do is just kind of start the ball rolling with the support of the board, that the town start, going back to this policy, and that the fire department and the police department start to look at this when we have an application on a private road. Now, there is also a state law that if the town, for an emergency reason, had to fix an issue with a private road, then whatever the cost is, then it gets billed to all the people by percentage-wise on the frontage on that road. But personally, I think that private roads in town should be, on a somewhat annual basis, or close to it, inspected to make sure that they're passable, so that when police and fire trucks go down, and ambulances go down these roads, they don't sustain several $1,000s in damage. I mean, you've got these fire trucks, and also the time involved. A street like Puckhorn, where it is, there could be a major delay to get to a house fire there, or to get an ambulance on an emergency situation to save someone's life. And I guess I'm looking to kind of like get that off my shoulders as far as being worried about it, and say, okay, I'm passing this on. I feel the gift because I had this application in front of us, by one case that says this needs to be looked at because this is not a safe situation. And in case of an emergency, the neighbor's house is going up in flames because the fire department can't get down there soon enough, or someone who's in a medical emergency is going to drop dead because the ambulance can't get there in time. So basically, I just want to have a little discussion about that and get your approval from the board that I can start to raise this issue with the planning board, the selectmen, and then the selectmen raising the issue with the police and fire, and come up with a town policy about, inspecting private roads that are not a hazard to access for particularly emergency vehicles.
Isn't that the planning board's job? I'm just curious.
Well,
where we weigh in on this. I don't mind getting involved, but.
No, no, it's not. It's a planning board's job when the subdivision is put in place, it's a planning board's job, because, and this is the
All
rule,
right, then once it's in place, whose job is it?
that's it.
The selectmen have to enforce it through the police and fire.
Right.
They are ultimately responsible for access to these streets. So consequently, get the fire chiefs and the police chief involved in this through the select.
Correct. But right now, this is a policy of the planning board. It's not, I don't think, a code that anyone's enforcing. You know, this is like, you know, we can have an interpretation on this board, like Jack now is doing. Hey, if the guy wants to turn this basement into a family room, I'm not gonna require a special permit. But the next guy, if Jack leaves office, might. You may revert back to that. So this policy is changeable based upon the whims of the current planning board. What needs to happen is a town policy.
No, I agree wholeheartedly. I think Mr. Ballantyne is the person who should
Oh,
be,
and I'm not disputing that, but I first want to,
but it shouldn't have to rely on your shoulders.
oh, I'm not, wait a minute, I want to pass the buck. All right, I just want to get the ball
I
rolling.
think what you're just trying to do is to highlight in the police and the fire department's processes, because I think, from what I've seen, the fire department's just checking where the smokes are gonna be, you know, in any addition, and then
Right.
they're signing off, saying that if, you know, yes, that needs to be done on all projects, but if the project's on a private way, you also need to evaluate the access.
But here's the issue. So let's say in this last case, this thing was on hand here, and all of a sudden, this guy was 3/4 of a mile down the street. We said, well, you know, in order to give you a permit, you know, you've got to improve this whole road, and it's gonna cost $138,000. I mean, that cost, there has to be a mechanism where all, like any betterment gets assessed to the whole neighborhood. So it's not totally as simple as just they inspect it. If suddenly, for someone to get a special permit, the police is gonna say, we're not giving it to you because your road is in poor condition. I mean, there has to be some thought put into this, okay? Because it can't be some of the private roads in town are like the private road we had tonight. It's like, it's 80 feet, okay? Now, if, you know, that applicant tonight, if all of a sudden the grass is growing up in the trees, and he can go out there with hedge clippers, and he can improve the width of the road and take care of the height, and do it in an afternoon.
In many communities, though, the property owners are responsible for maintaining the road.
That's right.
Whether they have to go out and have a construction company come in with soil or dirt and just spread it. But this is not,
But it's not happening.
it may not be happening, but this is done in many communities automatically.
Right, you know, I mean, there's 12 or 15 neighbors, 8 neighbors, they all get together, they all flip in the money to pay for a plowing bill, and somebody comes in, it's a small project. But what happens here is that because of the expense, in neighborhoods like this, the neighbors don't want to incur the expense, so they just let it continue the way it is and hope for the best.
Okay, so let me make sure I understand, 'cause I'm not quite following where you're going with this. So you want if someone comes for a special permit in front of the board as a condition, they have to get the road fixed?
No. The
No,
police
that's not what
department the police department has to know it's a private road, they gotta weigh in based upon the accessibility of that private road.
So how does it relate to the?
We cannot deny a permit because of the condition of the road,
No, of course not.
all right? So we're not involved there, but, because it came to our board and we all realized, because we're the ones who are going down these private roads more than, I think,
I wouldn't take my time, just Mr. Murphy had to drive.
yeah. I mean, I went
don't think
down,
it was bad at all. I've been on much worse.
no, that's true,
Luckily, it was an Al's car at the time.
you know, and I sent out an email saying, like, guys, don't bother doing it.
I think we're asking you, what do you want from us?
What I want from you
Thank you.
was, exactly. First of all, qualify, this board is not going to say, I'm sorry, your private road is not sufficient, we're not gonna give you a permit. We're not doing that. What has to happen is like when we say, in order for approval, you know, the health department's indicated you have to have a septic design that meets their approval. By the way, the police have noted that there are safety concerns on access to that road. You have to satisfy these concerns before the building inspector.
Can we do that?
I was gonna say, does that unfairly target people who are doing construction to their house on a private road?
As long as they have the access that's available per the planning board here, and if we consider that, if the town considers that road safe to travel, it needs to be be safe to travel.
But we're in an area here where we have absolutely no authority over any of this.
And I absolutely agree with that. What I want to be able to do.
Conditions we put on, like for off the road and all that, that's actually specified in the documents. That we are allowed to put restrictions on that'll
Right.
protect the neighbors.
But
in these
we don't,
situations.
but you notice in our conditions, we never condition it based upon going to the health department. We don't
No.
condition it based upon going to conservation.
No.
We may say the rules that you were required, you know, by the Conservation Commission have to be maintained. We've done that kind of thing and put them in because they've had a case, like particularly from the planning board. We've done that occasionally in the conditions that's been cited. But these people, we don't require people to, as far as our conditions, to meet the conditions of the health, conservation, or whatever. But they're informed during the process that the health department wants to make sure that you have a 4-bedroom septic design. If you don't get it, the building commissioner is not gonna approve you.
Don't forget, we do not have anything we put on this as a condition. We have no enforcement power. That enforcement power comes through the agencies. Now, give me an example. We had one over the campgrounds in which we allowed vehicles could not be parked upon the street because it was so narrow, and I forgot which one it was. And it was the one you gave
Yeah.
the shed. But
Me, I voted,
But in any event, the neighbors were so close together on opposite side of the street that we restricted the vehicles to the property.
correct.
Well, I took a ride down there after the construction started, and those construction vehicles were on the street.
But actually, at that point, Al, all you have to do is call up the building commissioner and saying they're violating the terms of the agreement, and he goes down and enforces it.
The neighbors had called,
Well,
and nothing was, I guess, that's what I was told.
okay, if that's the case,
Oh, the neighbors told you that?
I heard it through somebody else
well,
in the neighborhood.
but wait a minute, okay, prior to that, we've had a change of building commissioners.
Sure.
Okay. The current building commissioner, if they don't, they don't follow the rules of our conditions, and he's made aware of it, he will enforce it. Like, for instance, we had a recent situation because of how close they were going to be to the property line and you know, in construction. If they're trespassing on that client's, that abutter's property, he basically will, I believe, he will shut it down. Until, you know, for whatever period of time he's, you know, he can tell anyone to cease and desist until they correct an issue. You know, they put a orange or yellow sign on the property, and they're saying, you know, until this is corrected, you know, you can't do any construction. Yeah, Ken.
Are you asking us to take some action?
No.
Okay. I'm trying to figure,
So
I'm
what
hypotheticals. I didn't know what you're asking us for.
What I'm asking you to do is your approval that I basically bring this issue to the attention of the planning board and to the selectmen, that there needs to be an inspection or an authority that's gonna check private roads for
Do you want to make that into a motion and move it along?
for safety and travel. And I do not, this will not be a situation, if it ends up being a town policy that they're gonna start inspecting private roads for safety, when a house on that street comes to our attention, we're not gonna condition it based upon the safety of that road. That's up to the police or the fire department that gets up notices for each case we have to give their input. It's like,
What if they say it's an unsafe road? Do we turn their permit down?
No, but they would have to, the police would be saying.
What do we do?
We don't do anything. The police then would say, would condition it and saying like, until there's a safe road, you know,
But we
they
don't-
can't move forward with a
We don't
building.
condition it.
We don't condition it. They'll be informing the building inspector that they can't, this project can't go forward until there's a safe road. But that's not really fair, in my opinion, to the individual owner on the street. What has to happen at some particular point is the town's got to say to all the neighbors in the street, hi, by the way, your street's not safe for the following reasons. You've got X period of time to get it squared away, or we're going to take the following action.
Well, I'm in favor of giving you the guidance to go for that, unless anybody disagrees.
Go for it.
Go for it.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Okay, thank you, but anyways, I was surprised to find the fact that there was, you know, at least an opinion from the planning board about that whole thing, so. You don't think I'm done yet, do you? Okay, we're getting there. All right, guys, I sent you information on Pine Oaks, nothing's happened. Chloe's Road, nothing's happened, it's on old business. And one thing that I won't get into this because it's on a case that was, turns out, was continued. So I'm done. So I can hear a motion to close the meeting?
Actually, I have
Sure.
a question on the documentation you sent out on that past case that was overturned at the
Yes.
legal, and again, I'm not sure it's something that we would be concerned about, but perhaps the health department is. It seemed like the ruling was essentially if it's not a living room, a dining room, or a kitchen, it's a bedroom, right?
Yeah, I personally feel that the court didn't properly rule.
Yeah, because I mean, there's a lot of,
It's,
you know,
I think there was an error.
three-bedroom places that we've seen already, or other people see, that have a lot more room.
But that's a privacy, it needs a door. So if there's no door on it, there's no inferred privacy, so
But
it's,
that's
that's
not
not
what-
a bedroom, right?
But that's not what that ruling
It
said.
seemed like that ruling was focused a lot on septic and health.
Yeah, but, and their argument was that there were
Very little on
rooms
zoning.
designated
You can't
that
have
could be
privacy.
bedrooms. They just weren't
Right.
calling them bedrooms, therefore the septic had to be bigger.
Right. It seemed like, yeah, and I read through it, and I go, this was about septic
Yeah,
systems.
and they did refer
pollution.
to a specific, I guess, statute that defined rooms that were not bedrooms, and they basically said, if it's not a defined room, it's not a living room, a kitchen or a dining room, then it's a bedroom.
So
for
an
purposes-
office is a bedroom?
Yeah.
A
According to
den
that.
is a bedroom.
A den is a bedroom. A
is a
family
bedroom.
room in addition to the living room is a bedroom.
Right,
you know.
now, yeah, and I'll give you a
Just wonder
personal
how that
example.
may complicate things for, for us.
I don't believe we're going to, well, I mean, personally, you know, how I understand it, and again, these are these things that need to be clarified in code, a little bit, you know, more than, that if it has a door, or a door that, if it has a door, then it's offering privacy, and it could be considered as a bedroom. That's, you know, in my own particular house, I did a renovation a year and a half ago, and as you walk in my house, the first room to the left, we used as an office, and it had a double bifold door. And it did have a closet, and years ago, it was a bedroom. All right? And then it was, at one point over the years, the door was widened off. And why was it widened off? It was widening off the entrance into like 5 feet. So because they added to the house, and they added another bedroom to the house. So they still had a three-bedroom septic system, so that was constituting a fourth bedroom. Now, when I went for a renovation of my house, on one of the bedrooms, Board of Health came in, whatever, inspected, and they looked at the floor plan and said that you have to take this door off, this bifold door has to go, because with even that bifold door, they're indicating that provided the privacy needed for a bedroom. And I had to eliminate that door in order to qualify still on my 3 septic. So, you know,
And I guess that's what my question is, just to make sure, is that that determination rests with the health department.
correct.
So by the time it gets here, if the health department says it's a 3-bedroom home,
It-
it's a
it-
3-bedroom septic, then we're not questioning whether there's 2 dens and a
If
family
we,
room and-
if we look at it and think that it looks like there's 9 bedrooms here, but for the Board of Health, 6 of these rooms are either, you know, for wash and dryers or for storage or for an office, you know. And by the way, a bedroom does not have to have a closet. I used to think the fact that if it doesn't have a closet, it better qualifies as not being a bedroom.
That was dropped a number of years ago.
Huh?
It was dropped a number of years
Yeah.
ago.
So you don't have to have a closet to be qualified as a bedroom. So it's, I gotta tell you, it is, I find it confusing. I think when I read that thing there, I understand where the court went with it, but quite frankly, I thought the decision by the board was correct in approving it, you know, at that time. But,
Yeah, I mean, the court case basically reclassified a bunch of rooms as bedrooms. That's
yeah,
kind of what it came down to saying, was, we don't care what you're calling them, they're a bedroom.
right, and I know that took, because of COVID, it took 4 years
Yeah.
for that case to be heard, which is, you know, ridiculous.
The one controversial thing seemed to be how they define a neighborhood. Some of the
Yeah,
neighborhood
detriment
was,
to the
the
neighborhood.
neighborhood was the neighbor.
Yeah, yeah, they narrowed it down, yeah.
Yeah, very interesting.
When I read that, I was just concerned about, you know, that becoming a precedent that now a bunch of things start getting challenged. Right?
I don't,
And it's the zoning board that's actually granting the permit, you know, based on the, you know, the health department being okay with it.
yeah, and that's how I look at it. The Board of Health is fine with it. I think
But
we're fine with it.
We get those notifications, but they can't do any work if the Board of Health doesn't approve it. So we,
No, I agree with you. What I'm saying is that,
It's not a
you know,
zoning issue.
there's been a lot of other, you know, in the short time I've been on, there's been a lot of other plans that have been submitted that had other rooms in the house.
sure, oh yeah,
If you inserted those conditions into that court ruling, you could have a lot of neighbors appealing decisions this board approved based on that precedent.
I mean, one concern that comes up is when these rooms are in a basement and it doesn't have a separate outside egress.
Right.
So Board of Health doesn't want to hear about any aspect of that room being being looking like an office or a potential bedroom. I find that seems to be a strict, and then they've got to make sure it's a half wall or whatever they need to do, or a big enough opening or no door, whatever it might be, so it's not considered a bedroom, because there isn't a separate exterior egress, which you need to have a bedroom in the basement, or a big enough window to get out of.
I'm an egress window.
Okay.
I guess
All
I'm
right.
comforted that everybody else read it kind of as a bad precedent.
Yeah, I was confused by it, and, so, all right, I guess we'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
All in favor?
second,
Aye.
aye.
All in favor?
Aye. Aye,
Well, guys, thanks for your time tonight, and also my things on the, actually, meeting's over, but next month, we will be having nominations for